Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Market Open. We are live. I am sorry I am late. I went home last night to celebrate my sister's birthday, and I came back this morning. I did not know, even though I left 2 hours early, that there would be 14 miles of delays. Like 14 miles of delay. Like I got in the Tesla, and it's like, you'll get there by 8:50. And I'm like, no, I should get there by like 7:55. And it's like, no, there's delays. So yeah, it was a lot of traffic on the turnpike. There wasn't even an accident. I mean, it was raining. I didn't see the accident if there was an accident. I don't know why there was such heavy delays, but we're here. We're live. We got a lot to talk about. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It is officially NVIDIA earnings day. And as a result, we've got obviously a lot going on in the markets. We do have a green pre-market, which is nice to see. NVIDIA right here is actually green. NVIDIA announced a couple of deals this morning. You're likely going to have some partnerships and some deals that are announced based on the fact that it is their earnings today. And they announced something with Brookfield this morning, a $100 billion partnership. There's also some new deals with Saudi Arabia and the Middle Eastern subsidiaries that are investing in AI. You got NVIDIA right there, 184 in the pre-markets. And hopefully that momentum continues throughout the entire day. S&P 500 is up about 0.29%. We were red yesterday by about 1% of the S&P. At the low, we got to 655, closed at 660. Still was an ugly day. Robinhood up a little bit in the pre-markets. Palantir's up about 1%. Microsoft's down a little bit. Amazon's up a little bit. Bitmine's up about 0.5%. Nebius did buy the dip on Nebius yesterday. It's up about 2% in the pre-markets. Open Doors down 0.5%. Meta back below 600 again. The pre-markets at 597. And then you got Bitcoin right there at 91.2. I think the entire market is obviously waiting for NVIDIA, and we're going to see what they say. We're going to see if they can have good numbers. We got a lot to go through in terms of what the implications of the numbers could look like. But if the numbers are good, that is the first step to a successful earnings. Then the guidance has to be really good. That is the second step. And then after that, you need some help by Mr. Jerome Powell and the Fed to kind of solidify the end of year run if we are to get it. So it's a big day for NVIDIA. They've really got to execute. And from everything I've looked at, and we'll look at a lot of different numbers, it really does feel like they're going to execute well. But the question is just going to be how well is it enough to get the market to be excited. Now, speaking of NVIDIA, Jensen was at the White House last night. Apparently, there was this big White House dinner. And I knew there was a dinner. I don't know how important the dinner was. But you got David Sachs, Greg Brockman, president of OpenAI, Elon Musk. Look at those shoes that Elon's wearing. I mean, those are trillionaire shoes, dude. That's kind of crazy. And then you got Mr. Jensen Huang. So Jensen kind of chilling out with all the billionaires in the White House, likely talking AI before earnings. I think it's bullish. I would hope it's bullish, but we're going to find out. Here's an update on what happened last night with Trump and the Saudi crown prince who was at the White House.
Eamon Jevons joins us now with the headlines and a recap of the menu.
Yeah. Good morning, Joe. President Trump welcomed Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to the White House with literal open arms on Tuesday, treating him to a South Lawn arrival ceremony with a military band, mounted honor guard, and fighter jet flyover. Then in the East Room last night, the president toasted the de facto Saudi ruler with an elegant dinner and glittering guest list, including Apple's Tim Cook, Tesla's Elon Musk, Nvidia's Jensen Huang, investor Bill Ackman, and global soccer star Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, the president said he was officially designating Saudi Arabia a major non-NATO ally of the United States, putting that Arab nation in the same category as Australia, Japan, and South Korea, among others. And in his toast, the president highlighted the major investment deals he said the Saudis had committed to.
Saudi Arabia announced that it will invest an incredible $600 billion. That means jobs. That means jobs. It's also good for your companies, but I'm only interested in the jobs for your country. I'm not interested in the profits, but I guess the profits are there too. But $600 billion in the United States. And today I said, any way you can up that? And he said, I am going to up that to $1 trillion. So he's investing $1 trillion into the United States.
Now, the evening marked a return to full diplomatic standing for the Saudi leader, who had become an international pariah for the murder of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi by Saudi agents, a killing the CIA concluded was ordered by bin Salman himself. President Trump disputed that in the Oval Office on Tuesday, arguing that bin Salman knew nothing about the murder. Things happen, President Trump said. Now, today, we're expecting the president to attend the U.S.-Saudi Investment Forum at the Kennedy Center and continue to highlight the deep financial ties between the two countries. And guys, they have an all-star list of business executives coming to that Kennedy Center event today, so we'll watch for any news out of that one throughout the day. Back over to you.
Apparently, Elon's going to be at that conference. Karp might be at the conference. Karp was at the dinner last night. I mean, there were a lot of people at the dinner last night, dude. Ronaldo, because of the World Cup ties with the United States, was there. As you can see, there's a selfie with Ronaldo and Elon and Lutnick and Sachs. And it's kind of just crazy how important this dinner was last night. But you had Karp there. You had Vlad and Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong there as well. I mean, I knew it was an important dinner. I don't know, like everyone would be there, but apparently everyone was there. You got Benioff as well. So it was one of those events where the United States was essentially trying to commemorate this $1 trillion that the Saudis are basically committing towards investments. I think one of the reasons this is obviously bullish for NVIDIA is because right now a lot of NVIDIA's updates do not have any of the Middle Eastern chip sales. They don't have any of the China sales, and you're likely not going to get that for the foreseeable future. But the Middle East stuff should happen pretty quickly. I mean, it looks like within the next quarter, Jensen's going to be able to say that we officially have Middle East revenue coming in from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, et cetera, and a lot of these other different countries that want to buy their chips. Remember, for the past 4 years, the Biden administration basically made it impossible for NVIDIA to sell to the Middle East. By the way, this was Sam Altman and Elon, or Sam Altman and Zucks peeking through the window. They were trying to get in, and unfortunately, they were not invited. So you had Zucks and Altman, or maybe they were invited. Maybe they just didn't want to make it because it would be kind of awkward, but they were trying to get in there. So overall, it was a very important dinner. It looks like it's bullish for NVIDIA. Now, again, the price action on NVIDIA is going to be the price action that goes up and down in a very volatile way. In terms of how the street is thinking of it, there is a $300 billion market cap move for NVIDIA. $300 billion market cap move for NVIDIA, which is basically implying a 7% move on the options market. 330 billion would be the market cap. Now, some stats about NVIDIA that's really interesting to look at as we get into their earnings. First of all, the stock this year is up 35%. Their forward PE has fallen from 31 to 29.5, even with the 35% gain, meaning the stock is getting cheaper as it goes up based on the idea of, or based on the actual reality of their numbers being as strong as they are. So that's very bullish to see. And if they can, pull up with even better numbers today, then the stock hopefully will continue to get cheaper. Q3 estimates are 54.8 billion. That would be 57% year-over-year growth, up 17% quarter-over-quarter. Data centers, 49 billion. That's up 60% year-over-year. Gross margins, if they somehow beat 73.7, they did say about the latter half of the year they would get closer to the mid-70s. So I think that's where there could be a very big surprise if they come in at like 75. They used to be at 77 a year and a half ago. Now, I'm not expecting that. 73 for a hardware company would still be amazing, but if they can beat that number, that would be amazing. And then EPS $1.25. The whisper numbers are 61.8 billion. Street's expecting for Q4, gross margin of 74.5%, EPS of $1.43, and then data centers of $55 billion. If NVIDIA can beat the numbers you're seeing right here on the screen, which they're expected to beat in a pretty significant way, and pretty much every analyst report that I've read over the past 24 hours says we expect NVIDIA to really do a good job. I mean, there was one firm that literally said you should buy NVIDIA at 180 to 185 before the earnings because we're that confident that NVIDIA is going to have such a strong quarter, which, maybe they do and the stock still tanks, but you have a lot of the Wall Street guys feeling very, very bullish about what's going to happen with NVIDIA. If that's the case, then, hopefully this is a good quarter and hopefully the street likes it. But outside of just NVIDIA's quarter, we need these rate cuts and we need the Fed to be a little bit more accommodative to what's going on. The sentiment around the AI bubble is still there. I don't think we're out of the woods in terms of people thinking it's not a bubble, but NVIDIA making sure to solidify that the growth is real, the growth is coming. Jensen kind of calming everyone down again around this whole GPU depreciation debate, which is probably going to be the number one question he's asked about. You got Michael Burry tweeting even more things this morning about depreciation expenses in the context of Baidu. That will be very important, and that will hopefully calm down the street. So something that we definitely have to watch out for as we get into NVIDIA earnings today. Block announcing a $5 billion stock repurchase program. All right, XYZ buying back their own stock. That stock is up 3.7% right there. They did get into the S&P 500 this year. $5 billion announcement from Block to buy back their stock. So I'm going to put an NVIDIA pump or dump poll in the chat. I'll be live at 3:30 with Tanner, Neil, and Jose. So we'll be live either 3:30 or 3:45. But we will be live around 15, 20 minutes before the earnings, and we'll preview and see what we've got going on. NVIDIA pump or dump. I'd be happy if NVIDIA just stays stable. I mean, it would be nice to get a pump, but obviously I'm not expecting it. I would just hope it doesn't dump. And like that to me is the most important thing, especially as we're trying to consolidate a lot of the sentiment over the past couple of weeks, given we are down about 4% on the S&P 500. I think flat is not crazy. I think flat is not crazy either. Okay, so that's what we got on NVIDIA. Got a lot more updates to talk about with NVIDIA. Let's talk about Google. Gemini 3 was announced yesterday. We covered this a little bit on the market close. And my goodness, I mean, it is beating every single benchmark. Sundar is really having his moment. You've got pretty much universal praise around what's going on with Gemini. And I mean, quite frankly, he's making me want to buy this thing at all-time highs. 282 you have right there on Google. That's up 1.4%. The most impressive thing to me about Gemini 3 is that it was trained on Google's TPUs. And as a result of it being trained on Google's TPUs, you've got a lot of people starting to question, you know, how strong is Google in the hardware business based on the TPUs that they have been able to use to get the types of benchmarks that they're getting. As you can see right here on the screen, I mean, these numbers are just absolutely phenomenal. And if you look at it, not only on a year-over-year improvement from Gemini 2.5, but compared to something like GPT-5.1 or Claude Sonnet, I mean, the numbers are double or triple those other models. There hasn't been a comparison of Grok, at least not in this one. Grok 4.1 did come out yesterday as well. But my goodness, you had Elon, you had Sam Altman, everyone just give some praise to Google last night. Because, you know, when you come out with a product that's that good, you deserve it. And I think it really begs the question, again, this idea of an AI bubble. If the products are just that good and the user adoption is as strong as a Gemini at 650 million monthlies and 2 billion daily Google AI search overview users, like if that continues to accelerate and then it continues to get monetized because the product is just that good that people are willing to pay the $20 a month, $200 a month, or engage with the advertisements in those products, Google's going to win, and they're going to win at a profound level. I think it is part of the reason why Berkshire took their stake. I mean, at the end of the day, they are a toll booth for the entire world's attention with their advertising model, and they have so many other different bets that they're going for. And now that they have the distribution, if they introduce a new model, I mean, I am not loyal to a specific LLM. Like I recently signed up for Claude because it was giving me some better results. But if Gemini gives me better results, I'll cancel Claude and go to Gemini. Like there really is no stickiness unless the product itself is that good. The one thing about Google that could be more sticky than the other products in the LLM game is that they have all your data. And so if they know your search history, if they have your emails, if they have your Google Docs and all that's incorporated, I mean, it's a very, very, very exciting ecosystem that Google is going for. So I think it's bullish. I think it makes a lot of sense. And obviously Google's getting the praise that they do deserve. Now, someone doesn't believe that Google is a buy right now, and he doesn't believe the other Max 7s are a buy outside of Apple. Dean Evaluations, Aswath yesterday, with all the Max 7, the more CapEx they spend, the more cautious I become. If you're planning to buy them, it's not a great time. The only one I would say to buy is Apple. It's the most cautious of these companies. This statement got a lot of attention yesterday because basically he's saying, again, that every single Max 7 outside of Apple is in a bubble. And the only reason Apple's not in a bubble is because they're not spending tremendous amounts of CapEx, aka he's discounting the CapEx that Google, Amazon, Meta, etc. is spending because he doesn't think the ROI from that CapEx is going to be there. And, you know, people thought there was more nuance to his argument. There really isn't. I mean, we listened to the whole thing yesterday. The extent of the argument that I heard was Sam Altman couldn't give an answer to Brad Gerstner about the ROI. Therefore, he is concluding that every Max 7 is overspending. And as a result, the unit economics are not going to make any sense in the long term when they try to monetize this stuff. And eventually there will be a day of reckoning when everything collapses. The only way to hedge against that is to buy Apple because, you know, Apple doesn't spend on CapEx. So I found out last night in the comments, based on what a lot of people said, Chad said he's in an academic bubble. That's what it feels like based on these comments. Apparently, he called Uber overvalued at a $17 billion valuation. He called Nvidia overvalued at 33. He said he dumped all of his Apple back in 2012. He wrote an article. I mean, there's just a lot of different screenshots I've seen that I didn't really know about of this guy. Like, this is February 6, 2024. All the Max 7 looks overpriced. I mean, pretty much every Max 7 since then has done very well. Google's basically doubled. it's quite incredible to kind of see the extent of the argument. So I would chalk it up to someone who is stuck in his form of thinking, which is not necessarily a bad form of thinking, but nonetheless, it is a bit more dogmatic in the context of the current market environment that we're in. And I don't want to discount him. He's an NYU professor. He's been doing this for a long time. He obviously understands valuations, but I just like logically, we're going to discount Google and say Apple's a better buy, even though Apple's trading at a higher multiple than Google. They're not growing faster than Google anywhere. EPS, revenue, adjusted EBITDA, nothing. But Apple's spending $3 billion on CapEx, Google's spending $100 billion on CapEx. Therefore, Google spending $100 billion means that it should be discounted as a bubble. Given, quite frankly, one of the reasons Google is growing faster than Apple might be because they invested $100 billion in CapEx and many hundreds of billions over the past couple of years, whereas Apple did nothing. Apple's making iPhone fanny packs for people to, usher in the new age of innovation for how you hold in your iPhone. I mean, the idea that you would discount Google simply because they're spending more on CapEx, I don't know. To me, it's weird. It's very, very, very weird. And so I think, but the reason I'm highlighting this is because you have people like him in the media that are causing a lot of fear around the fact that AI is fake and it's all a bubble. And when you kind of dissect the extent of their arguments, some of their arguments might have some validity to it in terms of being healthily skeptical about it. But then other times you're just like, really? Like that's the analysis? Apple doesn't spend CapEx, therefore buy Apple? It's weird. It's very, very weird. But nonetheless, those are some of the arguments that are out there. And I think the market is trying to grapple with how to navigate a lot of those different arguments. Chad says you should pay attention when reality doesn't match data. Yeah, and the reality of a lot of the earnings that we've seen have only increased in terms of the earnings growth, which again, Mag 7 earnings growth has been pretty exceptional outside of Tesla, because of the investments they made in infrastructure and data centers and the reality of what they've been investing. We are seeing the ROI. The ROIC, the return on invested capital is not like 70 or 80%, but it's getting to 10 to 15%. And over the coming years, if that gets anywhere near 20 to 30%, you are going to have a meaningful return on those investments, which is going to match up to the reality of those earnings. Speaking of investments, this is where you are starting to get a lot more confirmation that this data center build out is probably not a bubble. The United States government yesterday gave a loan to Constellation Energy Group of $1 billion to restart a nuclear power plant in Pennsylvania. Why does this matter? Number one, I know, people freak out sometimes when the US government gets involved and we give out loans and, it feels like we're kind of bailing companies out and stuff like that. That's not what's happening here. In my opinion, what's happening here is a very, very strategic investment by Chris Wright, the Secretary of the Energy Department in the United States, to basically say, if we're going to build out all these data centers, if we're actually going to give all these companies a chance to fight and compete and be relevant in the age of AI, they're going to need power. I mean, the biggest thing we've heard, same thing from Satya Nadella a couple of weeks ago, is that we don't have enough power and we need energy for compute. He even said chips are not the issue. We have enough chips. We don't have enough energy. Constellation, right, they're up 2%. In order to build out these data centers and also not have regular people in Pennsylvania pay double their electricity bill every month, we need more energy. And in order to have that energy, you need a lot more investments in infrastructure into that energy and into the United States. And so the US government giving $1 billion loan, which $1 billion is a couple pennies for the United States. I mean, we spend a lot more than $1 billion on stuff that's pretty useless. To allow these companies to build out their infrastructure, again, to me shows it's not as much of a bubble as people think. I mean, again, one of the arguments for why the .com was a bubble is because we had all this dark fiber, 97% of it that wasn't used. There was no amount of ads that Yahoo could sell in 2000 that could justify that investment. And therefore, all the circular financing came to collapse and, the telecom build out made no sense. In this case, I mean, the fact that the government has to give $1 billion loan, and they're probably going to do a lot more of these loans to companies just to build out the energy to get the data centers to power up, because every GPU is being used as soon as possible in a variety of use cases, right? Waymo, FSD, enterprise workflows, ChatGPT, Gemini, Anthropic, et cetera. All of these things that are just at the early innings of their compounding effect means we need more energy. And if we need more energy, we're obviously going to need a lot more build out. I mean, quite frankly, I know that none of us love Oklo's valuation, but one of the reasons Oklo is worth $15 billion with no revenue is because I think the market is assuming they're going to get one or two deals. They're going to get $4 or $5 billion in revenue. They're going to be trading at 3-4 times sales, which is not that crazy because of how much raw demand is out there for the necessity around energy. And from that perspective, I think that further makes the argument for why, we are likely not in a bubble. This build out's real, and this build out is happening. And if this build out continues to happen, obviously NVIDIA, Google, Amazon, all these companies, the neo clouds, et cetera, are going to be beneficiaries of it, including MP Materials. So you had a deal this morning with MP Materials. That's why they're up 7%. MP Materials and the U.S. Department of War partner with the Saudi Arabian mining company Madeen to develop a rare earth refinery joint venture. We're going to need a lot of rare earths to be able to make these data centers make sense as well. And so you've got a partnership right there with MP and Saudi Arabian rare earth firms, as that stock is up 7.3% after hours as well. Look at the data center deal with Brookfield. Yeah, so that was actually the next topic right here. Referenced it early in the morning. This was also incredibly important. So, and I think this was one of the reasons why Nvidia was up this morning. Brookfield and Nvidia, along with the Kuwait Investment Authority, are announcing a $100 billion partnership for a global AI infrastructure program. The program will be anchored by the Brookfield AI Infrastructure Fund, which launched today with a commitment of $5 billion from our institutional and strategic partners, as well as Brookfield. We will acquire up to $100 billion of AI infrastructure assets, deploying investment across every stage of the value chain, from energy and land to data centers and compute. This was announced by Brookfield in collaboration with Kuwait's Investment Authority and Nvidia. Now, this is pretty obvious, and this was going to happen. We've had a bit of teasing of this when Jensen talked about this a couple months ago on the earnings call. So it makes sense that it is officially taking place. Obviously, they're announcing it today because we've got earnings coming up. So NVIDIA would want to get this news out there. But again, when people say it's a bubble, it's like, okay, but you've got other countries at this point partnering with investment firms along with NVIDIA to deploy $100 billion. And again, are they throwing out $100 billion for funsies? It's like, no, they expect an ROI on this $100 billion. They expect some level of return. They expect infrastructure. They expect to create jobs, et cetera. Like, I don't know. If you look at all this and you say it's a bubble, the question then becomes, you have to think that none of this $100 billion is going to have any level of relevance. And I mean, I would imagine that $100 billion is going to matter in some capacity. This goes back to the circular argument we saw yesterday. So obviously the big headline yesterday was NVIDIA, Microsoft, and Anthropic are going to be doing this partnership where Anthropic will get an investment from Microsoft and NVIDIA, and Anthropic is going to be buying $30 billion of compute from Azure. I thought a lot about this last night around, hey, you know, is this a bubble? As soon as this headline, or is this a circular sort of argument around data center financing that ends up leading to some cataclysmic bubble? Because that was kind of the gut reaction that a lot of people had yesterday. And my conclusion, just based on trying to be really logical about it, is I don't understand why people are freaking out about this. If, and this is the if, this is the $350 billion if, as per Anthropic's new valuation, if Anthropic has independent demand outside of the compute constraints they have with NVIDIA and Microsoft, aka if Anthropic's buying $30 billion of Azure compute capacity, and then Azure is going to be buying NVIDIA chips, and NVIDIA is investing in Anthropic to be able to buy the Azure compute capacity, is that a circle? Of course. But if Anthropic is going to use that $30 billion of Azure compute, which indirectly is using the whatever amount of billions of chips that NVIDIA will be buying from Microsoft to run those cloud AI workloads, to then generate revenue, aka an ROI, on the compute capacity that they are contracting with Microsoft. Same thing with OpenAI and their partnerships with Broadcom, AMD, Amazon, et cetera. Then why is it some circle that everyone is so afraid about? Like the reason in the dot-com bubble that didn't make any sense is because there was no independent demand, enterprise or consumer, that could ever make up for the level of investment that was being put into place. In this case, it's still a question if a lot of these model companies are going to be able to have that demand, but that's where you have to make a decision as an investor. Do you think that these companies are important enough? Do you think Waymo is important enough? Do you think FSD is important enough? Do you think robotics matter enough? Do you think Gemini is important enough? Do you think, you know, Claude in the enterprise is going to scale fast enough where they can generate those hundreds of billions of dollars of revenue, as per Sam Altman, and then be able to deploy it in a meaningful way? And, you know, that's a question of, do you believe in AI? And if you do believe in AI, then I think there's a lot of implications for that, but that doesn't have to be a circle. And in the middle, in the short term, is it circular financing? Yes, but like a lot of things are circular in nature. The entire economy is circular. That's how value is created. In the long term, is that circularity necessary to generate returns? And I think that's what Jensen's saying. Jensen, you know, NVIDIA has $60 billion in cash. Buying back their own stock is not really going to help. They have to put that money to use somewhere. They might as well give it to their biggest customers that are trying to build a very big business and generate demand outside of their current enterprise and consumer businesses right now. And as a result, you know, $100 billion of investments from Brookfield, et cetera, that kind of confirms, I think, the broader argument that we're seeing right here. Palantir right here, 168.92 in the pre-markets. Nvidia, 184.25. That is also green. Austin says the revenue ramp will be a hockey stick. We are at the bottom of said ramp. Yeah. And like, you know, when you're at the bottom of the revenue ramp, it's hard for people to see it. Just like this is just like even in investing, right? It was really hard to see Palantir scale their revenues up 63% year over year. Really hard to see when, you know, Hood was growing at like 10% to grow at 100%. But once it happens, and then everyone looks back and says, how did I miss that? And I think that's what we're seeing with AI. It's like, yeah, these companies are not growing like, these companies are growing crazy right now, but they're not getting to the, you know, hundreds of billions of dollars of revenue yet. But if that's going to happen, then they're going to need the compute and the data center infrastructure to make it happen. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of that momentum right now. Here's the Microsoft CEO of commercial business yesterday explaining this partnership with Anthropic and Nvidia and why they decided to get into this partnership.
Some of the money around as well. How do you think of that deal?
Thanks for being here, Steve, at Microsoft Ignite. We're thrilled to have you here and thrilled to be able to have you cover all of our announcements. Look, the Anthropic partnership is critical for us and very, very strategic because our customers are demanding model diversity in all of their scenarios. To us today, as we build out more and more robust AI applications and solutions, you see multiple models show up in a single scenario because it's about the right model for the right solution at the right price point in the right scenario and the right level of quality and fine tuning. So the partnership we have with Anthropic allows us to bring some balance into the models that we provide. We've already supported over 11,000 models in Microsoft Foundry. Now this is a big anchor tenant for us as well to serve up to customers.
And we're going to start seeing this bleed into more Microsoft products, the Anthropic models. We already had a previous partnership with them. Now that's going to presumably grow and expand.
Yeah, and it's fantastic. In fact, if you use Microsoft Researcher today, you can use it with GTP5 and you can use it with Claude. And it's pretty fascinating to actually see the difference in the responses that you'll get. If you're asking for a research paper to be prepared for you, GPT-5 can go pretty deep in text. Claude actually brings the color and context of visualizations to life a little bit more effectively in that type of a scenario. So you can already see the differences in model diversity popping in some of our first-party agents.
And presumably the customer would want to select what's better for them. When this news came out a few hours ago, my social media feed, my emails, et cetera, everyone, circular economy. This is, you know, vendor financing, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of concerns about this nature of the people who are accepting the money from these AI companies, also financing them. Do you think we're in this kind of circular economy sort of mode right now, or why invest in the company that's paying?
Sure. Well, if you think about it, the partnership that we started with OpenAI years ago, we invested $1 billion in OpenAI to help get them off the ground, and that's flourished into the AI standard, if you will, in the market today. We're doing the same thing with Anthropic to help bootstrap their growth and to help bring them to a new level of parity because they have fantastic models that have great use cases. We showed some of them on stage today at Ignite, and we want to make sure that the companies that are empowering the future of AI actually have the right kind of grounding in the market, and we're happy to be able to support them the way we're doing.
They're basically saying, look, these companies need investment. We have the capital, so we are going to deploy that capital into these companies. Yes, these companies are also our customers, but they have independent demand outside of the compute needs. They have to contract with us because they're growing businesses, and that's why we're making the investments. Like, it's not that crazy when you listen to it. I understand the headlines make it feel like it's completely circular, but if you believe these companies are going to actually be able to create value long term, I think the broader question is not, is it circular or not? Like, obviously it's circular. It's the question of, will these companies be able to create value over the next 10 years? The Anthropics, the GPTs of the world, et cetera. And if they are, then these investments are going to turn out to be really strong investments. And by the way, JP Morgan thinks so as well. So JP Morgan, I'm going to leave the link right here in the chat for anyone who wants to read this. I've read through a little bit of it, but not the entirety of it. JP Morgan put out a 65-page document yesterday around why the AI revolution is happening, how to have a process and a framework for investing in this revolution, how to think about it geographically, how to think about CapEx spend, et cetera, and then sort of a structural shift that's happening in the economy that's important for every investor to understand. So I'll leave the link right here in the chat if anyone wants to take a look at it. I'm still dissecting it, but I mean, they are pretty damn bullish, and you know, they could be wrong, but there's just a lot of opportunities is what they're talking about. And they use a lot of charts and numbers to kind of explain why these opportunities are real. And then when you get this $100 billion investment by the Kuwait Investment Authority today with Brookfield and Nvidia, it further solidifies that this is real. This is happening. and it's not stopping anytime soon, which is very exciting. So the question then becomes, why are we down, right? Why has the stock market been ugly over the past couple of weeks? And I was talking about this yesterday in the market close, and I hate to say it, but it's like, it's what kind of had to happen for this to be more natural, right? Like if we moonshot it to 72, 7,300 right now on November 19th, I think a lot of us would be happy, obviously, because our portfolios would up, but also a lot of us would be like, dude, this is like really quick. Like this is just like, this is happening at a pace that probably isn't natural to happen, especially given the past 6 months were green, including October. Even with the choppiness of October, we were up 2.5%. And so November, we're down 4%. Is that crazy to be down 4% in November? After 6 months of, no, it feels like, I hate to say it, but it feels very healthy. It feels like very normal to have Nvidia not up 57% year to date, but to be up 38% year to date. Like the S&P is up 14% instead of 18%. That is not some scary thing to deal with. It's just the fact that we had a month of like really, really big highs with a lot of these names that are now down severely from those highs, a lot of those being high beta names. That's why it feels aggressive. But this is not like some massive correction. I mean, this is like 4% down on the S&P. I mean, we went through that plenty of times in 23 and 24. It's just 2025. Ever since April, we had so much aggressive moves to the upside that it's hard to imagine that we would have a 4% drawdown. Nonetheless, it's a 4% drawdown. So at the end of the day, I do think if your portfolio is down a lot more than 4%, like myself, obviously, because I'm in a lot of these high beta names, that's just a question of, can you stomach the volatility, right? And if you can't, then you probably transition out of some of those names if you're not built to handle like a 15% decline in a month versus a 4%. But also, then you can't complain when you go up 15% in a month when the S&P is only up 3 or 4% because, no pain, no gain. So if you can't take the 15% drawdown, it's hard to celebrate the 15% gains. But it's not like the market is being super irrational here, saying Robinhood should be 115 instead of 150. Now, Robinhood gets below 100. I think the market starts getting stupid, but like that's not super irrational. It's just not. Same thing with Palantir. Okay, it's not 200, it's 170. It's like, that's not great. Tesla's at 400 instead of 450. Like that's just, these are not crazy prices. I just think the sentiment of people being afraid that this bubble's about to pop and everyone's wondering, should they sell? That's the broader concern, not necessarily the S&P down, 4% from the highs. So now the question is, can we get a good Nvidia earnings? Can we get a good Fed meeting? Can this stuff start to resolve itself? And we end up having this end of year rally. But over the coming weeks, I guess we're going to get a lot more of that data and see if it plays out. Bitcoin right there up a little bit in the pre-markets, 91.2 after being down for a while. A couple of different other headlines we got. So first of all, speaking of Tesla, they got permission from Arizona to officially expand and get a robotaxi service in their public roads. They got the approval from the Arizona Department of Transportation. So you are seeing Tesla begin to expand. Waymo expanded to 5 new cities yesterday. So you're seeing the self-driving revolution start to become very real. And I would imagine over the next 5 years, it becomes a mainstream thing where people are ordering robotaxis. So exciting to see those updates in the context of Tesla and Waymo. Larry Summers officially has resigned from the OpenAI board. It does say something that OpenAI actually put this guy on their board of directors. But based on all of the Epstein emails, which, by the way, unanimously got approved from the Senate last night, and the House was 427-1. I don't understand why Representative Clay Higgins actually voted against it, but I mean, it was quite incredible to see the one vote against it. But the House and the Senate passed it. And so I think by next week, we're going to get a lot of data on what happened with Epstein. And Larry Summers, from the emails that have already been leaked, apparently was talking with Epstein on relationship advice and how to have an affair, et cetera. Like it's kind of crazy. And so he officially apologized. He apologized in the past, but the emails in the past were not the email. A lot of these emails go back to 2019, 5 years ago. These are emails after he was already convicted of being a sex offender. So it's not like Larry Summers did not know who he was, but he continued to conversate with him. So now that the emails are so explicit, he is officially stepping down from his role at Harvard, stepping down from the OpenAI board. I mean, it is quite incredible to see the reckoning that is happening with these public officials that are somehow all tied to Epstein. But that is taking place. Does it need Trump's signature? Yes, Trump should be signing it today or tomorrow. Trump has said he will sign it. And once it is signed, it will come through. Now, I should warn people, based on Trump opening an investigation from the DOJ, there is a clause inside of the House and Senate bill that the government is allowed to redact information in the name of national security. So that is an official thing. There were a lot of senators that tried to get that amendment out, but they couldn't. Otherwise, they weren't going to be able to get the votes. So I think we're going to get a lot of information, but there's also stuff we're just not going to see, because there will be plenty of stuff redacted as well. But even with all the redactions, I still think there will be a decent amount that's out there. And, we'll find out in the coming days kind of what that ends up looking like. Nvidia right there, that's up 1.85%. Google's up about 1%. Oklo up 4% based on that Constellation Energy deal yesterday. So that's why Oklo's getting some love right there. And the S&P is up 0.2%. Where is Rocket Lab? That's at 42.65. That's down on the day. And then ASTS slightly up as well. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of things that I think we're going to find out from this Epstein stuff. A lot of implications, dude. A lot of implications for a lot. I mean, the more you dig down this Epstein stuff, the more everyone is involved with it. You would think, oh, there's no way that guy's involved. And it's that guy's involved. It's goodness gracious. At every level, you just start to recognize how freaking corrupt things are. And, we deserve to know. And hopefully we get as much information as possible. But there definitely will be stuff that's redacted. And we're going to try to see as much information that's out there. Bank of America raised price target to 60 on Rocket Lab. Okay, there you go. Rocket Lab's still red right here. But they did get a Bank of America upgrade this morning to 60. All right, here we go. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It is officially NVIDIA earnings day. Wednesday, November 19th. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. S&P 500 basically going flat on the day. 70% of you voted green. 70% of you voted green on the poll for today. Oklo right there, that's up about 3%. Google's up 1.5. Nvidia up 1.4, down a little bit from the pre-markets, but still green, up 1.4%. Tesla 404, that's green. Bitcoin 91,200. Robinhood 115.30. Palantir trying to get back to 170 at 167. Microsoft, they got a downgrade yesterday from some firm. It's a very small firm, but the firm basically said, we don't think that Microsoft's going to be able to monetize AI in a meaningful way that matches up to their unit economics. And so that downgrade took them down about 4%. They also downgraded Amazon. It was Rothschild Redburn was the name of the firm. But that's why Microsoft is red right here. 489. Palantir 167. That's green. Nebius, that's up 2.3%. BM&R, that's down 2.3. It was up 6% yesterday. Opendoor down 4%. Meta, that's down 1%. Meta right back below 600 at 591, right back below. MSTR down 2.64%. UNH down 0.35%. AMD, that's down about 0.5%. Netflix is down 1%. Ethereum is also, dude, Ethereum's pushing below 3,000 potentially. 3,030, barely holding on right there. That's why BM&R is getting hit. Iran 49.22. That one's up a little bit. Rocket Lab, even with that upgrade from Bank of America, that is flat on the day. MP Materials got to deal with the Saudi Arabian refinery, Medine, and that's why that stock is up about 4%. This one did get cut by about 30% over the past couple weeks, but still is green for the year. S&P 500 barely holding green, 660.4. It's up about 0.08%. Nebius also got a price target from Citizens, 175. So this one got another upgrade, 93.50 on Nebius. I did buy 3 things yesterday: Nebius, BM&R, and Amazon. So those were the 3 things, 3 small nibbles at those. But I don't know. It kind of felt like those were getting the most oversold, and kind of wanted to get a little bit more of each of these. I had not bought BM&R for like a month. Nebius had not bought for a couple weeks, and then Amazon since earnings I have not bought. So that's where I took a little bit of a stab at it yesterday. Disney right here, 0.232%. That is green. Verizon, that's up a little bit. Grab down another 1%. American Airlines up a little bit. Ondas had a great day yesterday, up 20%. Ondas down 5% on the day. All the quantum stocks are green again. IONQ up 0.5%. Rigetti's up a little bit. AppLovin at 535. That's up about 2%. PayPal, if they take her below 60, that's going to be incredible. But 60.4 on PayPal. Trying to see if that can hold 60. The Googs, are we at 285? We were at 291. We are well past 285. Look at that, 290. Back on the Googs, up 2.3%. I think you got a lot of people just buying based on Gemini 3.0 and how exciting that product might continue to be. Bloom Energy, that stock's up a little bit right here, 104.98. They did have a really good earnings a couple of weeks ago. Kind of fell with the high beta momentum drawdown, but they did have a pretty decent earnings. Tesla right there, 403. That's green. EOSE diluted by 500 million yesterday. And yeah, that dilution, you know, you either believe that the company's going to do something with that money or you think it's bad dilution. But nonetheless, that's why the stock is down 7% based on them diluting. Plug also diluted, if I'm not wrong. Plug right here down 17% after yesterday's move. S&P 500, 660.90. Wow, Nebius, 94. I guess that upgrade got the street a bit more excited today. I mean, you got a lot of money that's being ready to get spent in data centers. Obviously, the neoclouds should be a beneficiary of that. Nebius right there, 94.30. How about CoreWeave? CoreWeave getting a little bit of juice as well, 76.60 after falling 3% yesterday. Iren as well, going green on the day. 50 for Iren. Hoodie, are we pushing 116? Wow, 116.50. Crypto's not even up today, so that is nice to see Hood get a little bit of a boost. Crypto's relatively flat. Bitcoin right there, 91.6. Google, 292. All right, let's see if we can develop a bit of a trend. We are going green across the market. S&P 661, high of days. Nvidia trying to get to 184. Rocket Labs up 1%. Fear and greed yesterday got to 9, folks. That's another reason why I bought yesterday. I mean, we were 4 points away from freaking April. And I was like, okay, if I don't buy here, like, am I waiting for like 3 on the fear and greed index? So fear and greed now is at 12. We're still at extreme fear, but we are at 12. Bitcoin 91.4. Verizon's up a little bit. Carnival Cruise up a little bit. Apple getting hit. Apple going down. You know, I was at the Apple store yesterday because it was my sister's birthday and I got a new iPhone. And for a second, I really, really was thinking of buying that freaking Apple fanny pack. I was thinking of it. I was like, I need to show up to dinner with Steve wearing that fanny pack. I know he's going to love it. But then I asked myself, I was like, dude, it's $229. Do I really, just for the fun of it, do I want to spend $229? I was like, no, there's no way I'm going to be spending that much money on a freaking fanny pack. So didn't end up buying it, but I should have, because Steve's reaction would have been worth it. Nvidia, high of days, 184.40. 184.40 on Nvidia. CEG, that's up 3% after that $1 billion loan. So that one is also green. And then ASTS, that's up 2%. He would have cursed you out for 5 minutes straight. Yeah, he would. I'm getting dinner with Steve next week, so I wanted to surprise him with it. But I'm like, bro, he's going to get so pissed. It'll be so funny, though. It'd be so freaking funny. NVIDIA, 185, baby. We got 185. All right, up 2%. You know, I also think NVIDIA's in a great setup for earnings next week, or for earnings today, because, like, it's not at 210. It's nice to see it kind of sell off from those levels. And, you know, if NVIDIA pushes 190 before earnings, I think it's a little bit too much going into that quarter. But if it kind of stays around this 185 range, I don't think that's too crazy. Good numbers. Maybe that one really gets it to pop. Google right there, 295 on the Googs. Wow. Does she finally want to do 300? Does she finally want to do 300? Let me check resistance on Googs at 300. How bad 300 needs to be to overcome. She got to get through $4 more. 300 has 54,000 shares. Not that crazy. 54,000 shares. It's not that crazy. Meta, 590. Meta goes down, Google goes up. Meta goes down, Google goes up. Who's used Gemini 3.0? Has anyone actually used it at all? Because I have not actually played with it yet, but from the early reviews I've seen, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. And you can see the market rewarding Google for their CapEx and punishing Meta for their CapEx, because Meta does not have a Gemini 3. They have advertising, which again, I think at this multiple, it's still pretty stupid. They're trading at these levels, just given how good the ads business is. But the narrative on their CapEx not doing anything other than ads, that is the issue right now for Meta. Google right here, 296.50. 296.50 on the Googles. Also, S&P 662 highs of day. One of Meta's top AI researchers left to start a new startup. And, that's also, I think, getting the street to be like, why are your best guys leaving? And why'd you pay $15 billion for Alexander Wang? Like what? Where is this allocation of capital and talent coming from? And I think there's just more questions than answers right now. And that's where we're seeing Meta get hit. Nebius right there, 9014. That's up 4%. CoreWeave's up 2%. Rocket Lab up 1.3. That's 43.36. S&P trying to get a trend to go higher. Grab about to go green right there at 532. Oscar still down. Applied Digital, that's up 4. Webull basically flat at 839. Spotify 632. And then Duolingo continues to go red. U.S. Energy Secretary writes his Constellation plant will be online in 2027. Wow. They're aiming for a year from now? That's kind of crazy. I mean, it makes sense why they gave them $1 billion loan. If they think they can get it up and running in a year, that's incredible. So Constellation Energy right there, 3% after getting that loan from the Department of Energy. Circle has gotten hit pretty bad, dude. Wow, down another 5%. This IPO was at 30. It ran up to $298. Now it's at 72. I mean, again, Circle is in the business of stable coins. Quite frankly, they're in the business of transferring money market funds. I mean, from my understanding, that's like, it's not that complicated of a business, but they're just hoarding cash and then transferring it. And they have a spread that they give half of that spread to Coinbase. So, I mean, there are some parts of it that are not the most exciting, but this thing got hyped up early. And this is what I mean. Like Coinbase, Circle being at $300, like that was irrational exuberance. Now it's back to 72. If that takes a little bit of a market decline to get a lot of that froth out of the system, that's okay. Like that's healthy for the broader market because Circle going to 500 for no reason, probably is not the healthiest. Circle right there, 72.80. Not sure why it's down 5%. Maybe they got a downgrade, but this one is getting hit. PayPal still can't catch a bid. Is PayPal holding 60? Dude, it's barely holding 60. Just incredible. There was a news update on PayPal this morning, I think. They announced some partnership. Google's up 4%, but like there's no news that can get this name to move as of now. They announced, this was actually was this a week ago? Might have been a week ago. They're launching PayPal in the UK in a new unified payment experience through PayPal Plus. Okay, yeah, that's not enough to get the street excited. Micron, that's up a little bit, 0.39%. Amazon, wow, back to 220. Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Amazon back to 220. Goodness gracious. Nebius, is that one still making a move? Nebius right here, 94.34. That's up 4.3%. Robinhood 115. Wow, Google. Let's check 298 resistance. She's going for it. This is an all-time high on Googs, I think. This is an all-time high on the Googs. 298, only 11,000 shares on Google. By the way, TMDX, you had an insider buy some shares. This is for Transmedics Group. That's why that's up 5%. You did have an insider buy shares at Nike as well. About $1 million at 62. Nike right there is slightly red, 62.32. Meta 588. That one still goes down, and then Google really outperforming, dude. 4% on a $3.5 trillion. Google's inching her way up to $4 trillion. Nvidia's at 4.5. Apple's at 3.9. Microsoft's at 3.6. Google's at 3.598 trillion in market cap. I mean, that's incredible, dude. For a stock that was stuck at 140 for the majority of the year, it's really doing it. 298 now. 298 on the Googs. S&P 662. That's up almost 0.5%. Nvidia still holding 185. Tesla 403. Eli Lilly trying to get back to all-time highs. The Qs trying to make it back to 600, and then Palantir at 167 as well. Google is a classic case of like really having conviction, because for the longest, even in 2024, I mean, the stock was just stuck. And you had a lot of narratives like the woke AI and Sundar needs to be fired, and just like a lot, Perplexity is going to kill them. I mean, just a lot of stuff. And for those that just kept buying during that time, it sucks because a lot of stocks were running, but sometimes the reward happens in the back end, and the reward has come for Google. 298 up 4.85% on the day. Is PayPal losing 60? It touched 59.79, bounced real quick. PayPal now at 60. Micron just went red. Constellation still up, and then Meta 589 for the day. We do have some more labor data. I mean, we're going to be getting the jobs data tomorrow. We're also going to get PPI on November 25th. That was announced yesterday. So we'll have a lot more data that's taking place. This is from Bloomberg. Back to the labor market. This is the stuff the Fed needs to be looking at. 39,006 Americans were given advanced layoff notices in October, the second highest since the 2020 pandemic. This is from the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland. These notices are issued under the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification, or WARN Act, which obligates covered employers to provide at least 60 days of notice before a mass layoff or planned closing. This is actually true. We talked about this last week, that if you are a certain size of company, you have to give a warning 2 months in advance before you have mass layoffs. If you're firing like one person, you don't have to, but if you're firing like thousands of people, then you do have to do that. Since 2006, WARN notices have only been higher in 2008, 2009, 2020, and now May of 2025. The 12-month average rose to 26,927, matching levels seen since 2008. AKA, we are seeing more monthly WARN notices. We are seeing more mass layoffs. I don't know how the Fed can see data like that and think that we don't need to cut rates. Nebius 95. Nebius getting 95. Wow, Google. She didn't touch 300 yet, but she's close. 299.30. 300 is 50,000 shares, folks. We will ring a bell if Google can crack 300 right here. That'll be pretty epic to see a 3 handle on Google. That'll be pretty freaking epic. But again, this layoff data is real. This layoff data is real, and the Fed's got to pay attention to it. And I think more and more of the market is thinking like the Fed's not actually going to say that we don't need to cut, because they know that the Fed needs to cut. 50.9% chance now. 50.9% chance for the Fed to cut. You guys said it hit 300. It didn't hit 300 on GOOGL, though. It's got to hit on the Google. It's got to hit on the Google, not the Goog, dude. It's got to hit on the one we've been looking at. It's not my fault. It's their fault. They have 2 different classes of shares. It'll hit on the Google, though. If it hit on the Googs, it'll hit on the Google. That'd be hilarious if it never hit on the Google for today. It should hit there. It'll hit there, I would imagine, soon. Circle still down 6%. Hoodie 116.30. CoreWeave 76. Is it really hitting higher on Goog? Okay, Goog just hit 300.27. Google, dude, it's teasing us. It hit 299.99. That is hilarious, dude. This is so funny. It's going to hit 300 soon. There it is, 300. 300 Dolores on Mr. Google. Congratulations to everyone who ate a lot of shit for the past 2 years buying this stock. Today is your day, and you got rewarded. Google, 300. Are we in an AI bubble with Google at 300? Is that the case? Like, I mean, can someone give me the updated forward PE? I still think it's below 30. I mean, like, it's quite incredible. Google's earnings growth has been so strong, even at 300. I don't think their multiple is that crazy. If someone has the updated PE, let me know, but it should theoretically be either below 30 or just above 30, which, you know, Apple at 40, Microsoft at 33, like Google's growing faster than both of those. Google right there, $300 a share on the day. And then again, you also had Buffett come in. And when you get Berkshire come in, a lot of validation from one of the most important institutional investors on the planet. It makes you think, you know, the people screaming bubble, is it really a bubble if Buffett's buying Google at $2.5 trillion market cap? Like, if they thought it was going to collapse, would they put $5 billion into it? It just doesn't feel like they would think of it like that. S&P 663.45. That's a 0.5% as well. 29.1. Okay, that's what I thought. I thought it was just below 30. All right, so Google trades at 29 times earnings. That's your bubble. Like, that's what's supposed to collapse. Google trading at 29 times after Google traded at 17 times earnings for the majority of this year. And again, it just doesn't seem like that makes a ton of sense. Ookla right there, that's up 4. Nvidia 185.70. United's down. American Airlines up a little bit. Most of the tech stocks are going green. Sharp contrast from yesterday. Nebius, are we pushing 95? Nebius 93.59. We did touch 95. Heat map, based on what I'm looking at, also, yeah, relatively green to flat, not crazy green. You do have your Metas that are down, your Microsofts that are down, Apple, Broadcoms, but Google and Nvidia, Tesla, kind of holding on today, going green. CLS ripping, Celestica, are they ripping? Dude, CLS, wow, 6%. This is one of the most fascinating companies. They're from Canada, and they are up 240% year to date. Like, there's not that many Canadian public companies that are up that much, but Celestica is one of them. That one is green. They didn't have earnings, right? I think they got an upgrade today. I'll check if they had earnings, but I don't think they did. Figma is down 2%. Not sure why Figma's been taking a hit. Again, Figma has gone down substantially since their IPO pop of 500%. The earnings are pretty good. I mean, if you look at the top line numbers, they're trading at 17 times earnings. It's not the most crazy multiples. Just might be part of that high beta drawdown, and that's why Figma's getting some of the collateral damage as well. S&P 500, 663.70. UNH did get hit pretty ugly over the past couple of weeks. Hit 390 at one point, now back down to 309. Again, a lot of this has to do with the healthcare stuff that is not yet to be resolved. The unfortunate thing about the shutdown is that we're going to get another shutdown January 30th, and this healthcare issue is going to be the number one reason, unless the Republicans and Democrats negotiate before January 30th, which I don't think anyone has a lot of faith they're going to do. But that could be why UNH, Oscar, Elevance, et cetera, all those companies are being depressed right here. Oscar 1460 on the day. And UNH increased their EPS guidance. I mean, like, they did what they had to do on their earnings. It's just the entire healthcare ecosystem is not in the best scenario right now. But pharmaceuticals are getting a bid. So you got the Pfizers and J&Js getting some of the rotation. It's just the actual healthcare stocks are not. Google back to 300.10. That's a $3.62 trillion market cap. 3.62 trillion. Amazon, that is crazy, dude. They are taking her down. 219.37. This is literally prices before earnings. 219 to 222 is where it was right before earnings. They might be selling Amazon to go to Google. I mean, quite frankly, you might have some of that rotation taking place. Is Amazon going back to 200? Jason on the TA said it's possible. He doesn't think it's likely, but he is ready to load up a lot of equity if it does go below 200. And so would I. I mean, if they really give us Amazon below 200, nothing has changed since Amazon's earnings. In fact, AWS accelerated. You have a lot more operating leverage in their margins. Yes, they're raising some debt, but so is Google and so is Meta. I don't think that's the biggest deal. So if they do bring it to us, I don't think that's crazy. I don't think Bezos is still selling. I mean, maybe Amazon's down off the freaking headline that Bezos is starting a new AI company. And some people were making fun of it, like Bezos cares so little about Amazon that he started another company. But I don't know. I think it's more so the street being afraid of this CapEx spend. And Meta and Amazon so far have not had the clearest return on CapEx as Google. Although I think, Amazon's not building some massive foundation model, but Amazon, when they replace 1 million people with robots, and a lot of that robotics revolution happening because of AI, and their operating margins go to 20% from 12%. I think a lot of people are going to be asking, why don't they have Amazon? So I think the Amazon thing is a 10-year vision. Meta, a lot of confusion around what they're doing. Google, just very obvious with Gemini, how they're monetizing. Oh yeah, the Trainium chips. I mean, how did I forget about that? The Trainium chips it's not as, from my understanding, it's not scaling as strongly as Google's TPUs, but those are pretty important chips, and Anthropic signed a massive partnership with them to be able to train on those chips in a data center in Indiana. So it's not like that can be denied as a part of their moat. ASTS right there, 59.74. That's up 2.4% as well. Wow, Google, 301. Imagine if 300 is the new normal for Google. That means Google has doubled in 4 months. It was 150 in September. In September. Which would be pretty crazy. Okay, what else do we have? PayPal right here, 60.3. That's still down. Nebius 94.40. Then Figma, that's down. Let's see if we can get some macro news and see what else going on. We saw that layoff data that should be influencing, hopefully, how the Fed is thinking of this. Where is SoFi? SoFi is at 26.31. SoFi getting a little bit of green. Stephen Moran, Fed governor, he's going to be talking today. Oh, wow, of course. Representative Cleo Fields, our boy. Of course, he bought some Celestica. This is our new Nancy, guys. We got to pay attention to this guy. Celestica up 6. Is it really up because of that? There's got to be another reason Celestica's up today. Can't be because of this. That's incredible, dude. If it's because of that, that'd be hilarious. There you go. All right. So he bought some more CLS. Nvidia pushing 187. Wow. 186.90 on Nvidia. So that's, Google, Nvidia at the same time kind of moving together, which is important. We got some updates from Besant. Let's take a look at that. He did an interview last night, said a bunch of different things. He did say that Trump will be announcing the new Fed chair probably by Christmas. So we should have a new Fed chair pretty soon. Google right there, 30120. Yeah, I mean, part of the reason NVIDIA could be running is because of Google. I mean, when Gemini 3 starts putting up the benchmarks that it's putting up, you got a lot of people going back to the AI revolution being very real. And, then NVIDIA, as a result, catches a bid. So NVIDIA 187.05. I mean, quite frankly, Gemini came out at the exact right moment. You had a lot of AI sentiment collapsing. You had the stock market taking a big hit. You had people doubting if AI was real. And then Sundar just said, no, this is going to be the new standard. We are going to win this game. And it ups the ante on the other models that have to compete. And guess what? For them to compete with Gemini, they're probably going to have to make sure they have a ton of compute to even have a fighting chance to compete with how Gemini has been trained. And so maybe that's where you get a little bit more of a bid right there on NVIDIA. Here's what Besant said yesterday about the $2,000 dividend checks that they are thinking of putting out there.
And my prediction is that first quarter, second quarter, what we are going to see is we have brought the inflation down. It is curving down, and real income, the other side of that equation is real income growth. And we are going to see this from all this investment.
Would a $2,000 tariff dividend check going to people be inflationary?
Well, there are a lot of things that are going to happen next year.
Is that one of them?
And that could be one of them. And again, maybe we could persuade Americans to save that, because one of the things that's going to happen next year is the Trump accounts. Every child who was born from January 1st for the next 3 years is going to get a government account that goes into the stock market. So every American child born for the next 3 years, starting January 1st, is going to have that. They can take it out when they're 18. They're going to learn the power of compounding, and there's going to be a lot of financial literacy around that. And I think the reason that we saw kind of the disastrous election in New York is young people don't feel like they have a stake in the economy. So we want to give them a stake in the economy.
We know that.
So that's Besant's spin on why the $2,000 tariff dividend won't be inflationary. NVIDIA breaking through 187. You also had the White House chief deputy staff say to Bloomberg that they are trying to find ways to go without congressional approval to be able to send millions of Americans that $2,000 dividend. And again, we don't know the income limits on that, likely going to be below $100,000 a year to qualify for it. But it seems like they're going to try to print. Seems like they're going to try to find a way to print this money. And, closer to the middle of 2026, we'll probably know if that ends up playing out. Googs 301 still holding. NVIDIA 187, SoFi 2635. Even Hoodie making a move right here. Wow, 118. Crypto's not even moving. So Hood's moving with the broader tech trade. that's holding up right now. I don't know why Amazon's dropping. I don't have a headline on that. I really think it might just be a rotation out of Amazon into Google. Loop Capital, by the way, they gave Google a $320 target. Loop Capital has had a hold on Google for 2.5 years. And yesterday they gave them a $320 target. It's quite incredible. I mean, this is what I mean by like a sentiment shift on Google. The fact that they held Google for 2.5 years and said, don't buy it. And then yesterday, after a 140% run, like, okay, we think it'll go to 320. I mean, well, you're going to get a lot more institutional investors start buying when stuff like that happens. But it also shows how excited people are for the Googs. Google right there, 300.23, up 5.5% on the day. Amazon lost a court case in the EU. S&P, by the way, wow, almost up 1%, reversing everything from yesterday on the S&P. That is nice to see. EU court upheld the EU Commission decision to label Amazon a very large online platform under the Digital Services Act, so it must follow stricter rules on illegal and harmful content. Judges said the burden is justified by systemic risk. Amazon plans to appeal. Okay, there's your logic for why Amazon is down. I mean, I guess it's the EU. The EU said the same thing for Meta a couple months ago. The market didn't care too much, and then the United States ruled them not an illegal monopoly yesterday. One of the district appeal courts. Was one of the reasons Meta rebounded to 600. But if the EU continues to think Amazon's an illegal monopoly, obviously that's not the best for Amazon. 220 right there. Google paid a parking ticket of $6 billion in July to deal with some of their EU fines. So a lot of this stuff is also just inevitable. SoFi 2640, S&P 665. Wow, Nebius getting a nice little rebound right there. Hit 96. Now up 5.9% on the day. Are we still fans of Amcor? Yes. I don't think anything has changed on the Amcor thesis other than the market took a little bit of a hit. 3161 up 3% for Amcor. Again, when Jensen keeps talking about this American reindustrialization, that stuff is super, super important for companies like Amcor. Bitmine will release financial results tomorrow morning. Okay, Friday. So this Friday, we are going to get BM&R's earnings. A lot of people are guessing that he's going to stake. And I don't think he's going to stake because, Tom Lee said they're not going to stake until they get 5% of the Ethereum supply. So I know some people are counting on that, but I don't think that's the case. If they do, that would be a little bit of a surprise, but I wouldn't personally count on that. Hood right there, 117.93, Amcor 31.75. Here's another clip by Besant speaking about the investments coming in from the Middle East.
What does that look like? It sounds great, 600 billion to $1 trillion, but how does that roll out? What does it actually look like?
Well, think about if you are another country in the world, what do you look to the U.S. for? What are the sources of American power? And that's what we saw on display here today. First, there's the military. So Saudis are going to be buying F-35s, coveted by everyone around the world, proof that they are a valuable ally. Two, our great economy and the reserve currency status of the dollar. So they are willing to put in $1 trillion of investment into their portfolio that they already have here. The U.S. is the premier destination in the world. And then three, our technology and innovation economy. Again, they want to invest in that. They want to buy our chips. We are going to partner them with some of the U.S. biggest tech companies. And then there's also a Saudi startup that will be getting a smaller supply of chips that can be built on.
Let me go back.
So the chip business, again, for the Middle East is one of those things that's probably getting Nvidia to get a little bit of a move today, but that is something that's super, super important. And, that's another reason why the Jensen is compelling for the United States or trying to get the United States to allow them to sell chips into the Middle East. This is a graphic I think that's really important as well about Google TPUs. It probably also explains why Celestica is running today. As you can see on the supply chain to make these Google TPUs happen, you have a lot of companies, from the foundries to the rack integration to the PCBs to the design partners. Amkor's up there, Broadcom's up there, Celestica's up there, Jabilla's up there, Flex is up there. So another reason why a lot of these individual names could be running today is because if those TPUs, which again, Gemini 3.0 was trained on those TPUs, you might have their derivative plays in the supply chain benefiting because if those TPUs are that valuable. The more demand for the model, more demand for the TPUs, more demand for some of their supply chain partners. S&P, high of days, up almost 1% on the day. You're really getting a move right here. Robinhood trying to get to 119. Nvidia really pushing, up 3.2% as well on Nvidia. What do you think about BM&R $26 puts? The premiums are amazing on BM&R. Again, the number one question you have to ask yourself is, do you think ETH tanks? I think 26.27 is implying Ethereum closer to like 2,800, 2,850, maybe like 2,700. So I think that's the question you have to ask yourself. Do you think in the time frame you're selling the put that ETH actually gets to those levels? If it doesn't, the premiums are pretty good. But if it does, obviously you can get hit. By the way, these leveraged ETFs, guys, I was looking at some of them last night. MSTX is down like 95% from its highs. Same thing with MSTU. These stocks that were like leveraged MicroStrategy, 2x leverage, they got hit pretty bad. They got hit pretty bad. So I know there are BM&R leveraged ETFs out there. You got to just be careful because if BM&R does take a pretty big dip like MSTR, bigger than it's already taken, the leverage products get hit pretty bad. MicroStrategy back down below 200, 198. Down on the day. B-Fly's up 17% as well. Butterfly Network, this one again is a small cap. Had earnings a couple weeks ago. Decent momentum. Nebius right there, 96. S&P 665. And then Nvidia, just below 187. Just below 187. Yeah, the NAV decay on a lot of those, the net asset erosion on many of those leverage ETFs is tough. Because again, if the stock stays flat, the same thing with TSLL or BitX, or if the stock stays flat or if it goes against you, the NAV erosion becomes aggressive on a lot of those leverage plays. Google, she's pushing 303. She's trying to push 303. My goodness, dude. I mean, what if, okay, here's the question. Do you think Jensen really delivers today? Like, we all know he's going to deliver, but who thinks he really, because what if it's one of those earnings, and I feel like I'm getting too optimistic here, but what if it's one of those earnings where this whole bubble nonsense, everyone's like, yeah, this was kind of stupid that we even spent time talking about it. Like, what if it's one of those quarters? I feel like it's harder and harder for them to do because like the company's getting bigger and bigger and it's not easy to keep beating expectations, but I mean, if he did that, that would be Santa Claus coming to town. By the way, Amazon back above 220. That would be a legit Santa Claus coming to town moment. Because then you've got enough data that I think the Fed's going to look at that signals they should cut rates. You got Nvidia crushing it. You got Google crushing it. You get any more meaningful headlines around the state of AI. I mean, maybe that's your end of your rally. Maybe that is possible for your end of your rally. Couple different other headlines. Perplexity offered a deal to the government agencies at a discount. A lot of the AI companies are doing that. Williams-Sonoma announced a $1 billion share buyback along with Square at $6 billion. Oh, this might be the other reason we run today. This might be the other reason we run today, folks. Kramer, even after all this destruction, we are not oversold. That might be it. that might be it. That might be that, and a good Nvidia quarter might be the beginning of a new trajectory for the market today. Kraken just filed to go public? Really? Wow. Kraken confidentially filed for US IPO. It makes sense. I mean, this is the time to go public. Yeah, look at that. Kraken files to go public. They just raised 200 million from Citadel. I'd be curious to see what the S1 looks like. Be very curious to see how much revenue these guys are making. That's another crypto exchange, Kraken. They're getting into tokenized stocks as well. That has just filed to go public. 302.87 on Google. Google just passed Microsoft in market cap. Did it? Okay, so I'm at Microsoft 3.674, Google at 3.665. It's basically there. Another like 0.5%, less than 0.5%, it'll be above it. But yeah, I mean, wow, 303 on the Googs. This is incredible. This is absolutely incredible. I mean, it's a great run going into Nvidia earnings. Nvidia right there, 186.92. We're not talking about Kraken, the Anduril company. We're talking about Kraken, the crypto exchange. The Crackle Anduril supplier is already public, just on OTC markets, but they've been public for a while. Okay, let's see what other headlines we have right here. Microsoft's still getting hit today. Streets did not seem to love the deal with Anthropic, even though it does seem like a productive deal. S&P going green, still holding on right here. Do we have any macro data? I think we have some data. Oh, we had Target earnings today. Forgot we had Target. Target was down. They lowered their EPS target from like 7 to 9 to 7 to 8, so by $1 on the high end. Target was down 4%. They are now recovering a little bit. Let's get a little bit of coverage right here on Target, and then we'll go from there.
Michael Fidelki, who's the incoming CEO, starts in February. Here's what he told me about the quarter. Look, he said, we've got some work to do, but we are building momentum. As far as the performance, obviously he said he's not happy, but it was as expected. I'm focused on the change that will get us back to growth. And guys, just in terms of the cadence of the quarter and what it says about what they're seeing from the consumer, he said August flat, October flat, September is where they saw the dip. Why? Back to school was just a little bit choppier. It wasn't that cold. Usually when it's cold, that bodes well for some of the retailers. So on the turnaround.
That's crazy. He's blaming global warming. That's how you know the quarter was like not phenomenal. He's like, well, the weather wasn't as cold, so people weren't buying jackets. That's crazy. That's global warming. That's what you got to do sometimes.
He did note that the places where he said, quote, we've started to drive the most change, those are what's doing best. And he pointed to some of the hard lines, which are, electronics, toys is a good example. He said toys running at almost a 10% sales increase. He was encouraged by that because they've made some changes to the toy selection, more exclusives, more partnerships, more trading cards, which is very in, I can tell you, with the young boys these days. He said he's also encouraged by the momentum in experience. That's another key part of his strategy. They are making sure that more items are in stock. They're remodeling stores. They're changing the way they think about how certain stores fulfill digital orders. So not all stores are going to do that because it's been very disruptive and messy for some stores. They did announce a partnership today with ChatGPT where they're going to basically, if you're on ChatGPT, you can make a Target cart. He said, okay, this is part of the consumer story going forward. We're experimenting. They don't know how big it's going to be, but they are, he did talk about how there's some firsts here with this partnership and the two that it's the first one where you can add multiple items to a cart in ChatGPT and also fresh food items. So
that is not enough to get Google or Target pumping. Google continues to pump, but Target is going green, slightly green. It was down 4%. They did say the magic words OpenAI. Maybe that's helping them go a little green right here. 88.55. It seems like the guidance decline was bad, but it was not bad enough given the stock is already down like 30% this year, 40% over the past 2 years. So any good piece of news like this ChatGPT stuff Could also be bullish for them. Hassett says third quarter 2025 best ever for earning surprises. He is right about that. This is the best quarter in the past 3 years for earning surprises. We don't have the aggregate data on it yet, but it's something like 80% of companies are beating by 10%. So earnings growth has been very strong. By the way, someone just sold $23 million of puts on Google in the options flow. $23 million of a $300 strike. That means they're bullish. They're expecting Google to be above 300 by February 2026. Wow. Got some bulls coming in right here, starting to normalize the $300 range. Google right there, 303. That's up 6.7% in the pre-market. Okay, now Google has officially passed Microsoft, correct. Now Google has officially passed Microsoft in market cap. That's crazy, dude. That is crazy. I mean, they're betting to the tune of 300 million that this thing stays above 300. Bitmine's flat, Ethereum 3000, S&P going for 667. It is going for 667 right here. Another piece of data from Bank of America. Only 5% of fund managers expect gold to trade above 5,000 by the end of 2026. And none of them expect it to be above 6,000. So the risk reward on gold obviously is not that exciting to fund managers, although gold is up 1.4% today. So you do have gold breaking 4,100 again. But you do have fund managers that are not as bullish on gold going into 2025. So that's what you have on gold. Another update from Bloomberg that I thought was also interesting. ETFs continue to buy the dip. We looked at this a couple of days ago on Thursday last week, and it was something like $40 billion of flows over the past 5 days. ETFs were buying $8 billion worth of stock a day. Continues to happen. $7 billion yesterday. VOO, IVV, IEF, QQQ, XBI, the biotech starting to get a resurgence. IWM with small caps, XLV. $7 billion of flows once again into the ETFs, which lets you know that there are buyers that are taking advantage of this dip. S&P, we did touch 667. We did touch that level. Nebius right here, 96.68, up 6.7%. Big Bear's up a little bit. D-Wave's up 5%. Verizon just went red. Grab at 535. Then you got AppLovin that's up 3.3%. Okay, so far going into NVIDIA earnings, seems like the market's stabilizing. Seems like Gemini kind of calmed everybody down. And maybe this ends up reversing if NVIDIA's earnings are just not good enough. But I mean, it's almost like the move on Google is like, I don't know if that's a bull trap. The move on Google is not. Google's been waiting to bust through 300 for a long time. They got to 292 a month ago on earnings, or got to 297 actually, and then just wasn't able to make it through. So it does feel like they're expecting NVIDIA to do well. Wow, Bitcoin as well moving. Bitcoin above 92. Above 92. Let's get some coverage on the Googs right here, as this one is now getting ready to test Microsoft in market cap.
Mac, take a look at that. If you own Alphabet, even over the last week, 2 weeks, certainly 6 months, you're very happy. You can see what's happened just week to date, almost 10%. That's a record high. We're now approaching market cap right at Microsoft's level. So if you like to keep track of those kinds of things, Alphabet about to ascend to the number 3 position after Nvidia and Apple when it comes to overall market value, neck and neck. You can see that with that. Why? Well, it's the response to Gemini 3. Evercore ISI this morning. Gemini 3's here. Another example of leading innovation. B of A, Alphabet launches Gemini 3. Release does not disappoint. So those are the kinds of, at least, reviews, guys, that are out for this latest large language model, what it can do, what it's going to be able to do in the enterprise, what kind of a threat it represents to both Anthropic, which has a significant share in the enterprise, but also, of course, to the leader ChatGPT as well, and OpenAI.
It's interesting that the gains are coming at a time period where there's more scrutiny, right, on all of the AI spending. And clearly investors are being a little bit more picky about who's spending it. And maybe Alphabet's position as an already profitable leader in the enterprise cloud space is rethought a little bit. Remember, it used to be all about consumer AI, and ChatGPT was going to kill Google search.
Totally.
And the narrative has totally changed.
Said this so many times. A year ago, I think we were sitting here talking about their monopoly in search being threatened, and now it's a very different conversation. I bring it up all the time, but to the extent that, listen, if it's winner take all, they may have the cost advantage because of their TPUs. Chips they use for inference, they design themselves, so they're not as reliant on Nvidia and therefore not paying as much as some of their competitors have to for the compute that they need to power all of these models.
And that's another reason why the street is rewarding Google and not Meta as much, as Google is not as reliant as a company like Meta on Nvidia. So that does make sense. Google getting a bit of the premium right there. Nebius 95.93. It hit 96.72. And then you got CoreWeave right here at 76. I mean, I don't know, guys. It feels way better than yesterday. It feels way better than a week ago. You do see some decent reversals. Google obviously being one of the most important names today. I mean, you're just not seeing that many breakdowns of some of these patterns. Rocket Lab 44. Oklo 104, that's up 8%. Then Block, that's up 1.5. Tesla, look at Tesla, 410. I mean, again, Tesla got to 382. Google got to 278. Like, imagine over the past couple of days just nuking those positions because you were concerned about an AI bubble. They reversed within less than a week. So you might have a lot of those people buying back those stocks because they're annoyed that they sold them. And if it's not a bull trap, then it would just create a lot more buying pressure. Palantir right there, 168.50, trying to get back to 170. And then Eli Lilly, that's up as well. Hard to trust this to hold. I agree. I wouldn't trust it to hold yet. Obviously, we got to get through NVIDIA earnings. Definitely feels a bit more productive, but we've seen a lot of whiplash back and forth. Green and red. Netflix down 3%. Okay, so the reason for this is because what's his name? Paramount. They're trying to buy Warner Brothers. So it looks like Paramount's going to get the bid over Netflix, which maybe is not the worst thing because Paramount's getting ready to pay $70 billion. Maybe that wouldn't have been the best use of Netflix capital, but I think the street's upset because they want to see Netflix acquire some more premium content, and they might not be doing that. By the way, I looked at the Netflix option premiums. I would not buy Netflix just to sell covered calls. I mean, the option premiums are pretty bad. So I know it's more affordable now to buy 100 shares, but it's not like you're getting a great bang for your buck unless you genuinely want to hold Netflix for a long time. So from an options perspective, premiums are not that well on this one. HIMS, this one's still been stuck below 40, 36.05. This one has lost a lot of momentum. I know they announced that $250 million stock buyback. That didn't help. The stock is still heavily shorted. That didn't help, or that doesn't help. I mean, it's just been a tough name. It's still up for the year. It's just, this thing was at 72 at one point, and now it continues to go down. Stock draft, Matt's up 16, Tanner's up 12. Steve is not down 7, but he's got to change this 90% decline on Netflix. So Steve's probably like at around 7 or 8%. Chris is at 4, and I'm in first place at 26, even with the Duolingo decline. Nebius, Grab, AMD, Tesla, Hood, Palantir, JP Morgan are holding it down for me. So if we can get Duolingo to retrace or reverse, that would be nice. But we are in first place at 26.75. Boeing, is that up? Starbucks was having some protests last week. Boeing is down 2.6. Not sure why they are down. Starbucks is up 1% right now. What do you think of Jakarta potentially getting a deal in the GoTo Grab situation? So we still don't know how that situation turns out. December 17th, we're going to get a lot more data on what's going on with Grab because GoTo is going to have that extraordinary general shareholder meeting. And that's where SoftBank might get rid of the CEO and clear the way for a grab takeover. So I think that one is still up in the air. And around the end of December, we're going to have a lot more details on that. And if so, maybe we're going to see some real consolidation in the region. And obviously, I think that would be very, very bullish for grab. Ethereum right there, still barely holding above 3,000. VIX is down 11%. That's also helping. Apple, are we finally moving? Apple is moving, 271 up from 265. Okay. I mean, the fact that Apple is going green really does feel like we're getting a little bit more momentum here. Are there any options that you think are worth buying? Not really. I really don't think 2026 is a year to get excited about option buying. I mean, let me know in the chat if anyone has some leaps they're interested in. I don't know, dude. 2026, there's so many variables. There's so many, like, it can't be just full on, yes, it's going to be a great year because of all the different obstacles that we have in the macroeconomy, the labor market, the Fed, and then companies have tougher earnings. Like, a lot of these companies are going to have to beat really, really big growth rates in 2025. So to be like, yes, definitely these stocks, I need to go super out of the money with my calls. You just got to be very, very convicted on some of those names. Very convicted. Like, I have grab leaps, right? But like, that's because I'm really convicted on that. I wouldn't buy HUD leaps. I wouldn't buy SoFi leaps. I wouldn't buy Nvidia leaps. Again, it comes down. Now, if you have a very unique, like I know someone who has a ton of Amcor leaps because they really believe in the Amcor thesis. I believe in it. I don't know if I believe in it enough to have a expiry on my contract. So you got to really, like Nebius, I really, the more I go into Nebius, the more I think this thing is under freaking valued. But would I buy leaps on it? No. That's why I bought shares yesterday, even though leaps might end up working out. Meta leaps are tough, dude. Like again, Meta's undervalued, but Meta also has made a big move. Like some of these names that I think you can buy leaps on, if they haven't made a big move over the past couple of years, maybe they have their breakout. Maybe you're wrong, maybe you're right, but maybe they actually finally break out, which is kind of the 2023 into 2024 scenario in which a lot of leaps were printing. Meta's broken out from $88. It's done very well. So does it get a breakout to the point where it gets up to $850, $900 next year, or even in 2 years? I don't know. I just wouldn't want to be on the other side of that if it doesn't happen. The Trump just tweeted. He tweeted a Jensen quote. Jensen Huang quote, "As I promised, production of Blackwell has started. AI invented in America, made in America, built for America and the world." Okay, so Trump just quoted Jensen right there. Okay. Nice to see before NVIDIA earnings. Not horrible to see that. But that's what you got from Trump. Tesla 2028 400. Look, I know that leap is very popular with a lot of people. Obviously, I think Tesla's probably above 400 by 2028. It's just, again, the time decay, dealing with the volatility of the option, kind of just like buying shares here instead. Has he ever tweeted it before NVIDIA earnings about them? Honestly, I don't think so. Well, he's only been president for 2 other NVIDIA earnings, right? Yeah, I don't think so. I think this might be the first time he's ever tweeted about them for earnings. CoreWeave dumping again? Are they? Yeah, losing it. You're seeing a divergence between the data center plays and CoreWeave, dude. Nebius going green, Iran going green. Like, people really do not like the debt profile on CoreWeave, which I think is like, it's a concern, but it was a concern at 150. At 75, is that still a concern? I don't know. It's already been chopped in half at this point. I would not buy leaps on BM&R, dude. You just don't know what's happening with Ethereum. Like, and they look really asymmetric. If BM&R even, reverses back to like $50 where it was at for a couple months, but you just don't know. If Ethereum ends up staying flat in 2026 for whatever reason, that one creates a hit. What stocks do you think are good for covered calls? I think there's a lot of names. I mean, Nebius premiums are just incredible. as I've been going through them. So Nebius, I think, is one of those names. Tesla obviously is amazing for premiums. Meta is great for premiums. HIMS is good for premiums, but HIMS is taking a beating. HUD obviously good for premiums. Nvidia good for premiums. Again, a lot of these names are volatile though. So if you buy them for the pure premium, you have to be ready to deal with the fact that the loss of capital on the shares could outweigh your premium, unless you're ready to sort of navigate that situation where you're able to allow the premium to be higher, or at least trade the options in a way where the premium is higher. But when I think of buying a stock just for selling covered calls, I try to buy a stock that I actually care about, that I really do think is as a fundamental story, even if it is volatile. Because if you buy it sometimes just for the premium, like there's tons of names they'll give you, like Beyond Meat has good premiums, but it's Beyond Meat, officially below $1 right here on Beyond Meat. ASTS, that's also good for premiums. That's also very volatile though. AMD, 2%, 234. AMD going up. Not sure why SoFi's flat. SoFi's, well, it's up 1%. It's not fully flat. But this one kind of stuck around 26. One of the reasons SoFi doesn't have good premiums is, again, SoFi does not have the best narrative. SoFi has great execution. Noto's been killing it. But there's not a really exciting narrative on SoFi. There's just not. And if there is a narrative, let me know what it is. But one-stop shop for your financial needs is not a narrative that's exciting. So as a result, you just don't get that many option traders that are ready to bid it up. But you also don't get crazy volatility like some of the other names. So you get some premium in SoFi, but you don't get like aggressive BMNR type premium. But you also don't get horrible volatility. I mean, SoFi's been stuck between 25 and 30 for the past month, which if you're an option seller, that's not a bad scenario. I don't think S&P inclusion really matters. I mean, that will matter when it happens. I don't think it's coming soon. And if it does happen, it's okay, cool. But I don't know if that's going to be the biggest thing for SoFi. I also think, dude, they're gonna take their time. I don't think they're gonna give it to them in Q1 of next year. I think it'll happen in 2025, but I think it's gonna be later in 25. And if you're buying leaps or stuff like you can't be buying it just for that thesis. Like for HUD, the S&P inclusion was a cherry on top. It was not, we're buying HUD for the S&P inclusion. It was just hey, this is gonna happen. They're executing so well anyway. But the earnings growth was good enough to allow the stock to move regardless of S&P. Yeah, look, SoFi's IV can be higher, but that doesn't mean their premiums are better. Just because your implied volatility is there doesn't mean the premium is there, right? There's other things that go into getting a stock to have good premiums. So yes, implied volatility could be higher based on how options traders are pricing it, but it does not mean they're willing to pay the types of premiums they're paying on a HUD or an Nvidia. I don't think SoFi is getting in the S&P in December. I forgot they make an announcement in December, right? Yeah, they do have an S&P announcement in December. Yeah, I don't think SoFi is getting in December. If they do, that'd be bullish, but I don't know. They just got eligible 6 months ago. So I don't think that's the case. Thoughts on cores? Well, CoreWeave made an announcement that they're not going to be buying cores because the deal was unfavorable. So that's not happening. I don't know that much about Core Scientific. I thought it made sense. Part of the reason CoreWeave could be getting hit as well is that Core Scientific is not officially getting acquired. And, shareholders might be mad that deal didn't go through. Broadcom's up 5%. Dude, did I just miss Broadcom's up 5% today? Wow. It's upset. Well, obviously Google, right? Broadcom and Google's TPUs. That makes sense. Google up 5.8. Broadcom up 5.2 on the day. Bitcoin dumping again. Bitcoin. It is dumping again. Which, by the way, this is why HUD has better premiums. HUD theoretically could get right back to 115 if Bitcoin goes below 90,000. Now, the fact that it's holding 118 is quite incredible, but that crypto part is definitely a portion of the volatility on HUD. Bitcoin 90,864. Amazon under 220 again. 1030 slam. Are we back to that? No, we are seeing some red candles. Actually, not seeing it on Nvidia. Seeing it on SoFi, seeing it on AMD, not seeing it on Nvidia. Nvidia's pushing 188. You're seeing it on crypto, on Amazon. Nvidia's continuing to move higher, even Meta getting a little bit of a move. I don't buy that hood and crypto move together at all. I mean, look, I think they are diverging more often than not, but if you look at some of the at least early price action in December 2023, that was part of my thesis of buying it. Like once you saw the crypto volumes go higher, you know, that again, and the reason for that is because crypto is it's like 95% margins or like 85 to 95% margins. And so the street knows that if there's a lot of crypto trading, Robinhood just has a lot of net income growth. But yes, it has diverged more over the past couple of years. Let's see what else. Target is flat. Nvidia again will be live in the afternoon. Me, Tanner, Jose, and Neil. Happen at around 4 o'clock. See what other headlines we have here. We have some option flow coming in. Finally got my Robinhood credit card. 3% is legit. I think that continues to get more people excited about that card. You know, I think that, and that is the guinea pig for banking, I think. So that's going to be where you're going to start to see a release of those in tandem. PayPal announced a collaboration with the Premier League. That was another announcement this morning. Is PayPal still 60? PayPal is 60.20. All right, so I mean, like you're getting some green today, but you're not getting a ton of volatility to the downside. VIX down 10%, so you're really seeing the market just warm up for Nvidia. And they're giving Nvidia a little bit of a 3% move right here before the quarter. What is tanking is, wow, Ethereum. Looks like she wants below 3,000 again. Looks like she wants below 3,000 again. Epstein bill now going to the White House. Okay, so that means Trump should be signing it pretty soon. I don't know when we officially get the release of everything. I would imagine within like a couple of days. That'll be out. And then we're going to see Circle still dumping. Yeah, well, Bitcoin going down also hurts Circle. I saw the Microsoft Fabric IQ stuff, and it's kind of like a competitor to Palantir with Ontology. Microsoft's been trying to compete with Foundry for a long time. I mean, we used to talk about that on Palantir Weekly years ago. I have not gone deep enough into it to be able to say it's a meaningful competitor. Chad did respond to the tweet, and he said that that's not really what an ontology is. So you do have some of the Palantir engineers saying, it's not really what we do. But this is the new Fabric IQ where they're trying to incorporate an ontology. I think ultimately, you know, the TAM for enterprise AI adoption is so large that the growth rates on Palantir should continue to persist, even if Microsoft encroaches in the space. So I wouldn't necessarily think of it as a massive competitor. Palantir has barely moved recently. Honestly, I think that's a good thing for Palantir. It's kind of stabilizing. I mean, let it stabilize around this range, 168 to 180. Like if it just stays in this range, holds this multiple, continues to grow into the valuation, that is very bullish. It doesn't need to go back to 200 anytime soon. And it doesn't need to go back to 120. But both of those are real possibilities, right? Like it could bounce up to 200 if the earnings are that amazing. And then it could collapse if, you know, people start thinking that it's too expensive. So the fact that it's holding these levels, maintaining the multiple, every earnings continues to grow into it, I think that's bullish. Ethereum getting hit, Bitcoin getting hit. I don't know, guys. I mean, here's the question: who thinks that crypto is topped? I was reading a lot yesterday from some of the more bigger crypto Twitter accounts, And a lot of them are just flipping bearish. They're just like, crypto's topped this cycle. We'll see you in 2029. And they weren't even joking. They were just like, no, it's topped. If that's the case, Ethereum's top, if it was a top this year for the cycle, would have been 49.56, which seems like a far way to get back there. And then Bitcoin would have been 126.325. The worst thing is if it did top, MicroStrategy and BMNR are going a lot lower, because if it topped, then Bitcoin and Ethereum going a lot lower. So, and you know, the Coinbase, I think, is going to be more prone to it. Robinhood, again, is a bit more diversified, but I feel like I don't know enough about crypto to like make a top call. Like, I feel like I know a bit more about equities to say, hey, I don't think it's a top for crypto. I have no clue. I don't feel like it's a top, but obviously the price action has been pretty disgusting. Ethereum right there, below 3,000. ETH continuing to go down right here. M2 money supply lagging due to government shutdown. That is also fair. Atlanta Fed is projecting that Q3 GDP will be 4.2%. The problem with this is that I don't know if they're fully taking into account. Actually, no, Q3 GDP is correct. Q4 GDP, because of the shutdown, that's where we might see 2%. So again, the White House said expect a 2% decline on Q4 GDP, even if Q3 is higher. So that's good, right? Q3 being up 4%, but Q4 is what the market's going to care about. And that shutdown might be why we don't necessarily easily see another 3% run. But, you know, if it's a one-time thing and we get back to 3% for 2026, then I think that'll be important. If that was the top, then this is a very sad cycle. Well, to be fair, right? As someone who has not really participated in the cycle from a crypto perspective, more from like a hood perspective as my proxy, hey, Bitcoin went from 15 to 126. That can't be that upsetting, right? Ethereum went from what, 1,000 to 5,000 basically. So you got a 5x on Ethereum. You got a little bit more than a 5x on Bitcoin. That's pretty damn good if that was the cycle. Solana went from 9 to like 250, right? XRP got back from the dead. You got Farcoin get $1 billion in market cap. Like, if it really was the top, those names have done very well. It's just like anything, it's hard to get out at the very top. Again, I don't know if we're topping. I don't know enough about crypto. I don't know enough about the TA, don't know enough about the fundamentals. I'm just reporting what some of these like 300,000-400,000 follower crypto accounts that like are pretty well respected in the crypto community. I'm reporting what they're saying, and they feel like it's a top. Now, granted, they could be wrong. So just like people in the stock market are wrong. I think the reason it's not a top to me is that the risk on environment along with rates coming down means that money's got to go somewhere. And if money's got to go somewhere, the most risk on asset for money to go to, especially if we continue to print money with quantitative easing and rate cuts, et cetera, is crypto. Now, maybe it's gold. And that was the sort of pivot this year that I think no one expected in the crypto community, that gold would be up 50% and Bitcoin would be red. But in 2026, if that's the pivot, then maybe you got Bitcoin green. Tom said the 4-year cycle is broken. That's another good point. I mean, Tom said the 4-year, and I've also been saying, I don't think the 4-year cycle is real anymore because institutions are adopting crypto. Now, maybe there's some magic spiritualness to the halving cycle that creates a, massive level of pain, which is necessary to go through. But if not, then maybe that's not the case. New Fed chair in May, money printing, rates coming down, Bitcoin top is not in. That would be my thesis as well. Like, at the end of the day, every time I think, okay, maybe, 2026 might not be the best, I remember Powell's done in May. The market knows he's going to be done by March, right, with the shadow Fed. I mean, as soon as Trump announces the new Fed in December, he'll become kind of a lame duck Fed. And so, like, whoever that is, whether it's Kevin Hassett or Kevin Warsh, they're dropping interest rates by like 100 bips on day one. And when that happens, I just think whether it creates an inflation bubble or asset bubble, whatever you want to call it, it's going to create stimulus. And that's where money will have to be deployed, and some of that money might be more effectively deployed into these risk-on assets. Update on Nvidia, and then we'll keep going from there.
The bell. This comes as the overall tech market pricing in some AI jitters. NASDAQ, of course, is on pace for what will be its worst month since March. Let's talk to Ben Reitz, the head of tech research at Melius. Buy rating 300 on Nvidia. Before we get to it, I did want to just start with Alphabet. You cover that as well.
Yep.
Move up has been extraordinary in the stock price just in the last 3 days, let alone the last month. Gemini 3, I don't know if you had a chance to look at it at all, but give me your take and whether or not this move up is justified on hopes for that latest version.
Well, I was impressed by it. I think it's a big leap from the prior models, and it showed a bigger than expected leap in some of the performance benchmarks. And when they put out the users for 650 million users of the Gemini app, I think that was better than expected as well. And OpenAI is at around 800, the last disclosure. It's probably higher than that nicely now. But as they close that gap, that's good for the stock. That's going to pop the stock. But I did want to also mention that Broadcom's a big winner because they make the TPUs. And clearly, the differentiation of having your own silicon and investing in your own infrastructure is helping Google. And it's been an amazing run. I think, search has obviously still some problems potentially. I know the numbers have been okay, but they're looking like they're a Gemini and cloud company that happens to sell search. And that was the part we wish we were more bullish on.
Yeah, well, I've made the point many times. A year ago, many of us and many in the investment community were sort of wondering, God, is there a monopoly in search really under siege? And here we are. And of course, I've also talked about those TPUs because it gives them an advantage on a cost per token per dollar per watt basis versus the others. Which gets you back to NVIDIA, by the way.
Well, we'll get to NVIDIA, but look, we're recommending Broadcom as well. But really bullish on that.
I remember when you did write, no kid Gemini's their homework, and you raised the prospect, if OpenAI starts an advertising arm, that could really get spicy.
I think that's still ahead of us, but what's happened is Google has done a really good job in cloud and even YouTube, Waymo, and people are realizing it was the cheapest of the Mag 7s. Potentially now, in this euphoria, it might be time for some other names like Microsoft to finally start to perform again. It had a good first half, but a lot of times these things go in waves. I mean, the wave in Alphabet was very violently to the upside in the third quarter into this quarter. So kudos to them. And I still think search is a business that needs to transform, but clearly they're doing a lot of other things.
So Ben, as far as NVIDIA earnings tonight, is the key question around this stock now the sustainability of the boom, the spending, and what long-term projections look like?
Well, the key theme tonight, and I'm surprised nobody's talking about it, is reacceleration. Actually, their data center business took a little bit of a dip on the growth rate and is set to reaccelerate, potentially as high as 60% plus. And I think people aren't talking about that enough because that should continue into the fourth quarter with hyperscaler orders and sovereign orders. So I think business is pretty robust there, and it could reaccelerate on the data center revenue growth. That's what we want to see.
By the way, one of the earliest analysts on NVIDIA, she just tweeted, Beth Kindig, she's been covering NVIDIA for a long time. I am raising my 2030 target on NVIDIA from 10 trillion to 20 trillion market cap. It may sound extreme, but my new analysis lays out a data-driven, fundamentally grounded case for how NVIDIA can realistically reach a 20 trillion market cap. That's, then again, 5 trillion sounded crazy too, but there you go. I'll try to go through her analysis and get you guys some numbers on why. But you got people getting bullish going into NVIDIA earnings.
Investors generally pay for that. Stock's taken a beating a little bit from the high. So it feels like a lot of bad news might be in this thing. And I think people are going to need Jensen to really explain this circular deal mentality, because I don't think it's stopping anytime soon. So he's going to have to, he's tons of cash coming.
And so he's using a lot of it to invest in companies that then turn around and buy his product.
And I thought,
but when you say explain it, what do you mean?
Well, I think that people just need to be, this isn't something you can just like say we're going to invest in our ecosystem and then people are like, oh, cool, I get it. Like, no, there's this fear of circular deals. So we need to have him explain very thoroughly, like, look, we're going to, over the next 10 quarters, we think they generate 600 billion in cash. They can only buy back so much stock. So that means hundreds of billions can go into this ecosystem. So he's a steward of this cash. So you can't just say we're going to invest in the ecosystem. Like, he needs to say, hey, look, we're going to, what's his methodology, maybe a little bit more, how he thinks these things will return, how he's seeing usage of AI so that he knows it's a good investment. And I just think that this isn't the kind of thing you gloss over.
Do you think he is done trying to influence China hawks?
I think I'm done writing about it.
Yeah.
I've spent enough ink on that where it wasn't worth it. I think that the China situation is unfortunate. I just feel like we got to move on. I think the issue right now is, can the orders be made up for by Saudi? Like, he was just here. And those deals need to come through to fill the void of what the buy side had in their hopeful models.
Well, Jensen was at the dinner at the White House last night. Maybe that's a good sign.
He's doing a good job there. And he's doing a good job with Trump, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
The point about the free cash flow that NVIDIA is going to have to invest is a real point. I mean, at the end of the day, they can't buy back their stock. Like, that's not going to be enough. So investing into the ecosystem is a fair point, and that's why I think people are not that afraid of what NVIDIA is doing. Ethereum getting nuked, 2984, back below 3,000 for the second time in less than 3 days. Bitcoin, I mean, do we see 89,000 again? Last time we saw it was on, what was it, Sunday night, Monday morning? And what's his name? Someone tweeted. Who's the guy that tweeted, this is the last time you'll be able to buy Bitcoin below 90,000? It wasn't Eric Trump. It was another one of these guys. But that might not be the last time. 90,231 on Bitcoin. Oh, yeah, the Winklevoss guys. Yeah, the Winklevoss guys. Yeah, these guys are... I just hate when they have these absolutist statements, because, like, it's markets. Like, you can't be absolute about anything. You can have a price target, you can have an idea, you can have a sort of trajectory. That's why I try not to be super bearish something or super bullish something unless you really have the conviction on long or short something. But things can go against you easily. Like, to say this is the last time Bitcoin's below 90,000, it's like, how can you say that? How can you confidently say that to millions of people? It's like, what if you're wrong? And there's a good chance everyone is wrong when it comes to this stuff. Mike Alfred said that too. Yeah, I just don't like those types of proclamations. Because more often than not, the market goes against you easily. I mean, think of all the people when Tesla was at 200 said Tesla will never be at 400 again. It's like, well, that didn't happen. You might have an assumption that it would be hard for Tesla to get to 400, but to say it will never happen again. Apple right there, 271. We are seeing some red candles across the board. Nvidia giving up 187. Robinhood giving up 118. Little bit of dumpy time. PayPal 2 cents away from 60. Google just lost 300. Okay. 10:30 dump was 21 minutes delayed. And you're getting your little 10:50 dump now. Where's ASST? $1.07. Okay, that's down another 4%. Every day, dude. Either the party's over at 9:45 or the party's over at like 11. But the party ends every day. The long-term party continues, but these daily parties are ending pretty quick. But then the party might start again at like 2 p.m. And in this case, Jensen might be bringing the beer to the party. It's literally a roller coaster every day. Dude, it was so funny last night when I went to go see my sister for her birthday. And I was asking her, I was like, so do you feel like, her portfolio was taking a hit as well? I was like, do you feel like bad? Like, are you, like, she's like, feel bad about what? I was like, your portfolio. I was like, you're not at all-time highs anymore. She's like, I'm not? I was just like, do you even open the app? She's like, no, why would I open the app? And then she opened it. She's like, oh, okay, that's fine. Dude, she is so zen about it. She doesn't care at all. I was like, you realize you're down? She's like, yeah, but it'll come back, right? I was like, I mean, yeah, it probably will. She's like it's not going to zero, right? I was like, no, I don't think it's going to. She's like, okay, so why do I care? I was like, dude, that's the mentality that so many of us need. Like, she legit was like, it's not going to zero, right? I was like, it's probably not going to zero. She's like, okay, so why am I stressing about it? I was like, you know what? That's right. That is very right. That is absolutely right. It's the best type of investor. It's literally the best type of investor. It's so funny too, because dude, I was trying to surprise her for her birthday. So I didn't wish her the whole day. And so I wanted to like surprise her and come home for her birthday. And she's like calling me while I was in the car. And I was trying not to answer because I was like, I don't want to like pick up and tell her what I'm doing. And I was just going to say, oh, I was in the show. I was too busy. I couldn't pick up your call. And then I was just going to show up and surprise her. And then I realized while I'm on the highway, I was like, dude, she has my freaking location. And I was like, oh my goodness, dude. So then I picked up her phone and I was like, you probably know what I'm doing right now, right? She was like, are you coming to see me? I was like, oh my goodness, bro. That location, like I really didn't think that, of course, she has my location. If I didn't call her the whole day on her birthday, she's going to be worried about like just what's going on. And so, yeah, she kind of figured out. But, you know, we made sure my mom didn't find out that she knew. So it was still a surprise. Hopefully my mom's not surprised, quote unquote. Because my mom came up with the idea. She's like, why don't you surprise her? I was like, all right, cool. I'll come through today. And she did a good job acting surprised. But yeah, she kind of knew. It was ridiculous, bro. The freaking location. Like I totally forgot. Of course, she's going to check my location. Mike on right there, 229. Well, that's up 0.5%. Dude, all of you guys blaming my beard for the market being down is kind of crazy, dude. And I'm not shaving it because if I shave my beard and the market goes up, I can never grow a beard again. So if we're going to zero on the S&P 500 and I'm going to grow out a beard, then screw it. That's what we're going to have to do. But it cannot be the reason why we think the markets are going down. Also, Jensen and Elon are not live on CNBC. Why are you guys saying that's happening? David Solomon is live on CNBC. He's the Goldman Sachs CEO. They might be live at 12 for like some conference, but they're not live right now.
These that are important companies in the economy, and they lend to those companies. They are generally below investment grade, below investment grade companies when we're talking about direct lending. And these companies have cash flow and they're big companies. And if the economy's doing well, which by the way, the economy has been doing well, and we haven't had a credit cycle for quite some time, the performance of those portfolios is generally pretty good. When we do have an economic contraction or we do have a recession, you're going to see more difficult performance in those portfolios. That's very different than private credit financing data centers, okay, and capital financing data centers. And again, data centers like real estate deals. Who is the end, the end takeoff, provider? So if you're relying on some of this data center financing on people like Google or Meta or Amazon, okay, that's very different than if you're relying, on a company with different, different credit standards. So these are all different aspects of lending. They're all different. The credit risks are different. One of the things I've said about credit generally is it's a process business. Your underwriting standards, how you manage risk, how you run your underwriting processes, how you manage your portfolio, very, very important. And I think there are people that are very, very good at it. And of course, when we have an economic recession or we have a contraction, you're going to see who's better at it and who's worse. We spend a lot of time on this because we've been doing this for 40 years. So we've been in these businesses for a long, long time. But I think discipline, risk management, very, very important in these businesses. But it's hard to see where the real issues are until you have a real credit contraction from a recession.
So Goldman Sachs CEO saying the data center investments make sense. The AI trend is not reversing. He's admitting there are some issues in private credit, but it's not as obvious and would not cause a full-on reversal of all the macro trends we've seen based on lending, which, at the end of the day is continuing to make the case for why Goldman should be investing as much as they're investing in data centers as well.
Or an economic slowdown. We don't have that at the moment.
Yeah, it's still pretty nascent at this scale. I have to ask you, because Congress passed a bill to release the full Epstein files. There have been executives across industries, including finance, that have been named in some of the correspondence that come out. Goldman has been caught up in this just in terms of the GC, the general counsel, and her correspondence with Epstein. Are you concerned at all about additional fallout here?
Our general counsel ran for a long time the white collar litigation practice at Latham & Watkins. She's an excellent lawyer, and the organization relies on her guidance every single day.
Okay, I see Elon's live. He's at a Saudi investment forum. Let me pull this up.
You have helped us build our energy-based economy, fueling and energizing the industrial age, and now fast forward, going to the intelligence age, where we can fuel AI factories, robotics, AVs, and all of the rest. Speaking of that, let's start with you, Elon, if you don't mind, Jensen. Feel free to chime in. You have a big fascination of something all of us have admired.
And services. This is why I say that humanoid robots will be the biggest industry or the biggest product ever. Bigger than cell phones or anything else, because everyone's going to want one, and or maybe more than one, and there'll be many in industry.
I just want R2D2 in C3PO's body.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, I mean, a humanoid robot would be better than R2D2 and C3PO combined times 10.
Yeah.
So and you know, people often talk about sort of eliminating poverty and that kind of thing, but really how long have they been talking about that? There's lots of talk.
And His Royal Highness about how we are committing our capital, energy, land to energize the AI US ecosystem, to be able to build inference node, training nodes, and to be the most AI-enabled nation. With that announcement, tell me what's next in AI factories, Jensen?
There's a beautiful story about how Saudi Arabia is building AI refineries and now building AI or oil refineries to AI factories.
I love that.
I've said that AI is an infrastructure, and the reason for that is, of course, we understand AI from the perspective of the technology and how it's revolutionizing every industry. Digital intelligence, of course, has applications into every field. And so it's going to be used by every company, every industry, every country. In that way, it's foundational, and therefore it's part of infrastructure. What is new about AI from a computer science perspective is that the way computing was done in the past was largely retrieval-based computing. Mm-hmm. Somebody typed in a story or somebody.
Okay, so, I mean, we're not getting anything different from what Jensen and Elon have said for a long time. That's the Saudi Investment Forum. If anyone wants to watch it, I'll leave it in the chat. We are going red across the market. Wow, Bitcoin, there you go, below 90. Once again, below 90. Again, they are both making the same arguments they made for a while. I guess Jensen's doing the earnings from DC, because I think that Saudi investment conference is happening in DC. But it looks like Elon and Jensen are there talking to everybody. Nvidia losing 187, Hoodie losing 118, Nebius just lost 97, 93.50 right here. AMD barely holding on to green. It's why we're not out of the woods. I mean, you get a little bit of love and then boom, come right back down. S&P was pushing 667. We are at 663. Wow. Look at that. Look at that mountain hill just going down. UNH. Wow. Dude, we haven't seen UNH at these levels in a while. I mean, $5 from 300. Last time it was at this level was September 5th. It got to 389 on October 27th. Complete reversal as it got hit. And then you got PayPal sub 50 or sub 60. Yep, VIX up 6% the past 30 minutes. There you go. So I mean, the VIX is not up 11% like yesterday, but it's also not down 12% like it was in the morning. And that's why you're getting the divergence here. It's not my beard, bro. It's not my beard. I'm not letting you guys bully me into shaving my beard because you're superstitious. Because as soon as, dude, if I shave the beard and then the market goes up, I will never be able to grow a beard again. So I'm just going to reject the premise that my beard is correlated. Or my hat. You guys are like, oh, you're wearing this hat. That's why it's like, no, like we're not going to get that desperate that Amit's hat and his beard are why we're down 4% on the S&P. We're not going to do it. Although I will say, I did shave my beard at the beginning of 2023. And we did end up having the beginning of a bull market. So that is, I will say that did happen. But we're not gonna buy into it. We need the jersey over the hood again. Yeah, maybe that'll help. Do not shave your beard, be bald. Your beard versus our portfolios. I mean, look, if it really gets that bad and if we lose all hope in this market and the only thing left is my beard, then I'll take one for the team. I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're at that point. Now, 2022, going into 2023, Palantir is $6. I didn't shave the beard for that reason, but I mean, honestly, I probably shaved the beard because I was just like, you know what, we need a change because 2022 was so depressing. I was like, we need something different. And if that's the case, then yeah, I'll do it, but hopefully not. Bro couldn't afford the razor. Oh my gosh. Meta right here, 587. Meta goes down. Zoe says, it's not your fault, Amit. It's my fault. I shaved my beard. Exactly. Zoe, you needed to keep it as well. I think we'll be okay. We need these NVIDIA earnings to be good. But again, like the choppiness of going red intraday. I mean, like it's been a story every single freaking day. This is what's happened. Until the market gets clarity around rate cuts, we're going to get hit. Amit would lose the beard to stress. I mean, I already have gray hairs in the beard, bro. Like I've kind of just accepted all the stress over the past couple of years. It has led to the gray hairs. You said your mom told you look like a terrorist with the beard. She still says that. She said that yesterday too. I was like, all right, Mom. It is what it is. I guess I'll get to know Palantir software a lot more intimately now. But Broadcom right there, 352. That's up 3.5%. Google, that's up 5%. AMD's up a little bit. Bitmine's kind of I mean, the fact that it's kind of holding above at least 30.50 is not crazy. Ethereum right there, 29.60. Will we do another ugly dip with NVIDIA positive earnings? Big companies haven't been getting sparred. Well, look, if NVIDIA misses earnings, I mean, my beard is going to be the least of people's worries. If NVIDIA misses, we are going downtown. I can't imagine that happens. So then the question becomes, how good of a beat do they have? And I think that's the question the street's struggling with. But this random like 11 a.m. reversal, that's not anything to do with NVIDIA. That's every single day for the past 3 weeks we've seen S&P pump up 1%. Now it's down 0.7. Then it pumps up 0.5, then it goes down 0.2. Like it's just been the nature of these. I mean, for traders, it's been amazing. For all of us that are just trying to get a trend to the upside, it's been ugly. How about missing guidance in NVIDIA? Well, here's the thing. I mean, I don't think there's a world in which they miss. Like, I would be willing to I was going to say I would be willing to bet money, but I guess I am betting money with holding on to the stock. But Jensen said there's a $500 billion opportunity over the next 5 quarters. How do you miss guidance? Like, there's no way you miss guidance when you guide for already that strong of a quarter, unless it's baked in. But even if it's baked in, the street still is conservative against the assumptions that Jensen has. And this is without China. So unless the street includes China, but the street knows not to include China. By the way, there's NVIDIA's data center business, $164 billion run rate. It's just incredible. Yeah, you got the Middle East increasing their spend. Could Jensen miss the whisper? Sure. If he misses the whisper, I mean, he missed the whisper last time, but it was by like $300 million. It was not like $5 billion missed on the whisper. So I would imagine that even if they miss, it's not enough to create if he misses guidance, that's different. Missing on the whisper is like, it's the whisper for a reason, right? Now, if he beats the whisper by like a couple billion, we're going way higher, in my opinion. But that's what we're going to find out at 4 p.m. We're going to see how it plays out. Dude, what is everyone doing for NVIDIA earnings? Are people like, are you just going to be at home? Are you going to be at work? Are people going to a bar? Are you gathering with friends? Are you guys having a party? Is anyone like doing something special, or is everyone just going to be nervously staring at the stream? Praying? Oh my gosh. Because remember last time there was that New York City bar that got rented out for NVIDIA's earnings? Like people were throwing like legit parties. Davis says I'm going to be on a hike. It's funny because even if you don't own NVIDIA earnings, it still matters, right? It still really matters. Because it matters for the whole market. Okay, everyone just says they're going to be waiting. Picking out a Christmas tree. Dude, I forgot the holidays are. Because I went to the mall yesterday and I saw like the Santa Claus and stuff. I was like, dude, I forgot. We are literally closing in on November, and we are getting ready for the holidays. Like it's kind of crazy. I saw the Christmas tree at the mall and I was like, oh my goodness, we're getting ready to end out the year. Like legit end out the year. How do you think it'll affect AMD? I think AMD, I mean, go up or down with NVIDIA. I did say yesterday, AMD has done a great job holding on to their momentum ever since the OpenAI deal, because the streets kind of turned on OpenAI and they're thinking OpenAI is a bubble. Again, AMD is only up because they announced that OpenAI contract. So I think the fact that the street's not turning on AMD, because the street could easily say, hey, AMD, we don't think you're going to get this $80 billion from OpenAI. So like, why the hell should we continue buying the stock? Right? Like the street could easily be like, we're afraid of OpenAI. We're now afraid of AMD. And again, the only reason AMD pumped from 150 is after that OpenAI deal. I know Lisa Su gave good guidance last week, but I don't know if that's enough to pump it 100 billion in market cap. So the fact that AMD is holding this, I think, is at least some confidence in what their deal is with OpenAI. And then, if NVIDIA crushes it, that's hopefully net positive for AMD. Dougie, thank you for the gifted memberships. Appreciate you, man. 5 of you, Jack, So, Andrew, and Chim, and Lippy BK. You just got a membership by Mr. Dougie. For those saying AMD is growing earnings, that's why the stock went up. I mean, why was the stock not going up before the AMD OpenAI deal? Again, I love AMD, but the earnings growth, first of all, it's not NVIDIA types earnings growth. It's not NVIDIA type revenue growth. And the stock was legit flat at 150 for 3 months until the OpenAI partnership. Like, I think AMD would probably be higher than 150 by the end of the year without OpenAI, but that move to 260, I think you need a catalyst. Same thing with Broad. By the way, it's not a bad thing for AMD to have that OpenAI deal be the catalyst. But like, nonetheless, we got to acknowledge reality. Oracle went to 350 because of that OpenAI deal. Oracle's back down because the street completely doesn't think that OpenAI is going to give them the money. I'm actually saying it's bullish that the street thinks AMD is more important than Oracle, that the street believes that they're going to get the money from OpenAI. But like, it's hard to believe AMD went up without that deal. It's just now the question is, can they execute on that deal? And, I think that's what the street's also concerned about. But the 35% revenue CAGR from Lisa is definitely bullish over the next 5 years. Elon just had a quote. What was the quote? XAI in Saudi Arabia are doing a 500 megawatt project with Nvidia. Okay. That's bullish. Let me go to the stream. Let's see if we can catch when he said that. Yeah, this makes sense. XAI, has been collaborating with a lot of these different countries. So it makes sense they're working with Saudi.
It originated 20 years ago in research but AI was able to
Yeah, 500.
with XA.
A 500 megawatt. I mean, yeah, 500. Sorry,
500 megawatt.
500 megawatt. Yeah.
We're doing 500. We're doing 500 megawatts.
Sorry,
Not
there's.
quite,
Yeah. No, the 500 gigawatt one will have to wait. That'll be $8 bazillion trillion.
Not bad.
So yeah, we're doing a XAI, and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia are doing a
Humane, 500 megawatts, starting with 50 megawatts phase one, and we're doing it with Nvidia.
Yes.
Congratulations to the Humane team, to Targ and team. Such a fantastic job. Jensen, I think we're also doing some great announcements this week.
We are.
Yeah.
Well, we're announcing all kinds of things. Our partnership with Humane is going incredibly well. First of all, we work together to get this company started and off the ground, and just got an incredible customer with Elon. Could you imagine a startup company, approximately $0 billion in revenues, now going to build a data center for Elon? 500 megawatts is gigantic. This company is off the charts right away. In addition to that, we're working. AWS, as you know, is also
Congratulations
coming.
to the Humane team with AWS, starting with 100 megawatts with a gigawatt ambition and counting.
So AWS is also coming to Humane. We're working with Humane on Omniverse digital twins. As you know, that AI is not just just agentic AI and chatbots, and cognitive AI is incredibly important to the world. But AI applies to everything: chemicals and proteins and genes and physics and fluid dynamics and particles, and of course robotics and activation. And we created this world called Omniverse, where robots can learn how to be good robots. And it's physically based; it obeys the laws of physics, and so robots can learn in these environments. And we're working with Humane to apply Omniverse to all kinds of digital factories and robotics and warehouses and things like that. And so that's another. We're also working in Saudi Arabia to build supercomputers to simulate quantum computers, and using our computers to be the controller and the error correction. Quantum error correction requires an enormous amount of computation, and so we're doing a lot of great work there too. So a big partnership with Humane. They're off the charts, off the ground and off the charts at the same time.
This is how we walk the talk in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in partnership with the US. Yesterday, the President and His Royal Highness announced the AI strategic framework and partnership. Today, we're going big with Elon and Jensen. So thank you for those opportunities. Now, they told me I have time for two last questions. So last night at the dinner, I got a number of questions because it seems that the schedule leaked, and everybody was giving me hints about the last two questions I'm going to do. So the first one was for you, Elon, and there's a big one for you, Jensen, so prepare for that one. AI in space, is that possible?
Yes. If civilization continues, which it probably will, then AI in space is inevitable. I always have to preface that. We shouldn't take civilization for granted. We need to make sure to take care to ensure that civilization has an upward arc. I mean, any student of history knows that civilization does not always have an upward arc, and in fact, civilizations have life cycles. So hopefully we are in a strong upward arc. I think we are for now, but we don't want to take that for granted or be complacent. But the way to think of AI in space is that in order to achieve any meaningful percentage of a Kardashev 2 scale civilization, where you're using even a millionth of the sun's energy, you must have solar-powered AI satellites in deep space. So that once you realize, once you think in terms of a Kardashev 2 scale civilization, which is what percentage of the sun's energy are you turning into useful work, then it becomes obvious that space is overwhelmingly what matters. Overwhelmingly. The sun only receives roughly 1/2 billionth of, the Earth only receives roughly 1/2 billionth of the sun's energy. So if you want to have something that is, say, 1 million times more energy than Earth could possibly produce, you must go into space. So this is where it's kind of handy to have a space company, I guess. Sell the book.
Easier to cool chips in space too.
Yes.
Easier to cool chips in space. Yeah.
Yes, there's definitely no water in space, so you're gonna have to do something.
Yeah.
That doesn't involve water.
Just hang out.
Well, you just got to radiate.
That's right.
So my estimate is that actually that the cost of electricity, like the cost effectiveness of AI in space, will be overwhelmingly better than AI on the ground. So long before you exhaust potential energy sources on Earth, long before, meaning like I think even perhaps in the 4 or 5 year time frame, the lowest cost way to do AI compute will be with solar powered AI satellites. So I'd say not more than 5 years from now.
Wow.
And just look at the supercomputers we're building together. Let's say each one of the racks is 2 tons. Out of that 2 tons, 1.95 of it is probably for cooling.
Right.
Just imagine how tiny that little supercomputer is, right? Each one of these GB300 racks will just be a little tiny thing.
And just electricity generation is already becoming a challenge. So if you start doing any kind of scaling for both electricity generation and cooling, you realize, okay, space is incredibly compelling. So, like, let's say you wanted to do, I don't know, 200 or 300 gigawatts per year of AI compute.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to do that on Earth. The U.S. average electricity usage, last time I checked, was around 460 gigawatts per year average usage. So something like, say, at 300, if you're doing 300 gigawatts a year, that would be like 2/3 of U.S. electricity production per year. There's no way you're building power plants at that level. And then if you take it up to, say, 1 terawatt per year, impossible.
Yeah.
Like, you have to do that in space. There just is no way to do 1 terawatt per year on Earth. And in space, you've got continuous solar. You've got you actually don't need batteries because it's always sunny in space.
That's right. Exactly.
And the solar panels actually become cheaper because you don't need glass or framing. And the cooling is just radiative. So that's why I think
that's the dream.
Yes.
That's the dream.
So Jensen, everybody last night was asking me, and I'm mindful it's earnings call for you today. So I'm going to say this delicately. Everybody has been asking me to ask you, are we going to have an AI bubble?
That's the last question. All right, no. All right, let me just tell you what we see. Okay, so I think it's really important when you look at what's happening around the world and go back to first principles of what's happening in computer science and computing. There are 3 things that's happening. The first thing is that we all know that Moore's law has run its course, and the amount of demand for computing versus the amount of computation we can get out of general purpose computing is really challenging. And so the world's been moving to accelerated computing for some time. We've been pushing this now for over 20 years. Let me give you one statistic. I was just at supercomputing. 6 years ago, CPUs were 90% of the world's supercomputers, top 500 supercomputers. 6 years ago. This year, less than 15%. Went from 90% to 10%, and meanwhile, accelerated computing went from the other way, 10% to now 90%. Okay, so you're seeing that inflection point, the transition in high-performance computing from general purpose computing to accelerated computing. Well, one of the most data-intensive, one of the most intensive computation things that the world does in cloud is data processing. Several $100 billion of computation is done on just raw data processing. It had nothing to do with AI. Just SQL processing, data frames, everybody's names, address, their sex, their age, where they live, how much money they make. All of that sits into a data frame, and that data frame drives the world today, whether it's in banking or whether it's in credit cards or, of course, e-commerce and everything from ad recommendation. Everything is driven off of that data frame. That data frame costs hundreds of dollars to go compute. And so that's the number one thing, end of Moore's law. The second thing is generative. What the last 15 years is called REXs, recommender systems. How do we know what information to recommend to us in a social feed? How do you know what ad to recommend to somebody, what book to recommend, what movie to recommend? The internet is so gigantic without a recommender system that a little tiny phone of us will have no chance of ever seeing the right information. That REXs is the engine of the internet today. That's going generative AI. It used to be running on CPUs, now it runs on GPUs, which then says the third thing, if you just look at those two applications, many of the internet companies can build an enormous number of GPU supercomputers just doing that. Of course, then it creates the third opportunity on top of it, which is agentic AI. This is Grok, and this is OpenAI, this is Anthropic, this is Gemini. Agentic AI sits on top of that. But don't forget to think about what is happening underneath what everybody sees as AI today. There's a whole movement of computing from general purpose computing to accelerated computing. And that, if you take that into consideration, you'll come to the conclusion that in fact, what is left over to fuel that revolutionary agentic AI is not only substantially less than you thought, and all of it justified.
Well, I was just informed by the team that my boss and your bosses is going to talk next, the Honorable President and His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, and hence we ran out of time. But in essence...
Okay, so you got Jensen and Elon pumping things up right here, trying to get pretty excited. Ethereum still down below 3,000. I mean, look, Jensen gave a very technical answer to the question about a bubble. Obviously, he's saying, no, it's not a bubble because of all the different growth and industries and verticals that these companies can expand to. And so tonight, when we get those earnings, that will hopefully continue to alleviate some of those concerns around an AI bubble. Elon's arguing about data centers in space. Again, him, Sundar, all of these CEOs are talking about how much demand for compute really exists, and that's based on their projections of what they think they're going to need to be able to execute on their big AI visions. Again, if these guys are right, then it feels less of a bubble and more of a question of how fast can these companies execute to capitalize on the opportunity versus an opportunity not being there. And hopefully tonight with NVIDIA earnings, that continues to reaffirm the opportunity that a lot of people do think is very real for AI. 185 on NVIDIA, S&P 500, 661.53. I think that is it for today. I will be back at 3:45 with Tanner, Neil, and Couch, and Jose. And we'll be live to cover NVIDIA earnings. Again, the street's expecting $56 billion for this quarter, $61 billion in guidance. S&P basically going flat on the day after being up 1%. So a lot of the moves that were given in terms of green are being taken back, although some of these names like a Nebius, like a Hood, NVIDIA, Tesla still holding their green. And then we're going to get earnings. AMD, are we holding a little bit of green? AMD going red from 236 to 227. Palantir as well going red. Amazon still red. Bitcoin now really falling from 89, folks. $500 away below 89,000. And so you are seeing that Bitcoin weakness come to place. Yeah, so we'll be live on this channel. I mean, I think all four of us will be streaming it, but whatever channel you want to watch it on is fine. But we will all be live at 3:45. Oh, I actually know this word. I'm not going to mess this up. Hermeneutic. This is a philosophical word relating to the theory and methodology of interpretation, especially of text, meaning, and human understanding. Hermeneutic. His hermeneutic approach to conversations made people feel like he grasped the deeper meaning behind their words. That is your word of the day. Hermeneutic.
Hermeneutic.
There you go, bro. Your boy aced that one. The real word of the day is Nvidia. And if Nvidia can put up these earnings. So we'll be live at 3:45. Make sure you're here. We're going to be locked in for about 3.5 hours. Get some food, get some drinks, get some good vibes. Hopefully Nvidia can give us good earnings. I'm expecting it. If it even stays at 185, I'm happy. Obviously, a bounce would be great. I just don't want it to go down because you already have sentiment kind of going the wrong way. You got the Fed potentially not cutting. So if the world's largest company, takes a 5-7% hit, that wouldn't be the best. So if we can at least stay at these levels, I'd be happy. And hopefully Jensen can continue to prove how important this revolution is. All right. Thank you everybody for being here. I'll be live at 3:45 with Tanner, Neil, and Couch, PM Eastern. And we'll get the NVIDIA results at like 4:05 to 4:10. So we'll have about 20 minutes. We'll preview it. And then we'll get these results. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I will see you guys for NVIDIA earnings in a few hours. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.